You can ask any question at any time just by stepping into one of the thousands of Democrat kiosks we've placed in front of 7-Elevens across the country. Decatur, Illinois. Let your voice be heard.
Hi, everybody. My name's Joe Crawford, and my question is, how many taco and cheese taquitos do you think I can eat in 60 seconds?
Kevin, have we screened all of these? We haven't? But we can? We can't. Great. Straight from the heart of America, raw and unfiltered, Rockville, Maryland, to Boulder, Colorado.
This is the most powerful sword in the planet.
So we really can't screen these things, Kevin? Not at all. Okay, then I think I'll just ask a question of my own. What's that? Okay, no, I won't. Austin, Texas.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Well, it looks like they let just anybody in here, and by just anybody, I mean me. And Peakless not near.
I refuse to be the member of any kind of club that would accept me.
What if you made your own club where the requirements were that they were, as close as they could be?
Well, I'd have to quit. Because they accept me as a member.
But what if you just were the leader of the club, so to speak, and not necessarily a member? Because you created the club. You're the club owner.
What kind of club has leadership that isn't in the membership?
I mean...
that's pretty screwy.
Like
sus.
No.
Very sus.
I'm thinking of it. There's a word for it. There's a term for it legally in the business world when you own and run your own company. It's owner-operator. Right? So if you're the owner-operator of the club, you are not a member.
Really?
I mean, by
I'm
default,
pretty sure
right?
you're wrong, actually.
Right? By default,
Yeah,
right?
no.
Because you're the owner and the operator of the club, thus you cannot be a member.
No, thus you have to be a member.
No, because you would have to then be subject to membership rules.
No, this is how private membership organizations work. Everyone who's in them is in them, and if you're not in them, then you can't affect them.
But if you're the owner of the PMA, then like you're outside of the membership, right? You are the decider, as George H.W. Bush put it once, right? You are the guy who is like, if there's any sort of, squibble or squabble or whatever about who is a member and who isn't, and you look through all the rules, you're going to be the tiebreaker because you're the owner-operator.
I just want to know what a squibble is.
It's like
I've
a squabble.
had a squabble.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but just with an I instead of an A.
Oh. Is it littler?
It's just different.
Does it explode like a squib?
I think it's more British.
Oh, like a damp squib.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think like...
So it would have been a squabble, but it turned out to just sort of disappoint you.
I think where we would say Thames, they say Thames. I think it's in that, sort of gray area.
You say Thames?
Well, if you just read it as a word and you've never seen it or heard it pronounced before, it is spelled Thames.
Do you call him Thomas as well?
Like, I have been known to do this. Christopher, right? For example, right? Like, how does it spelled? You got to pronounce it. Like, phonetically working out a word is a brain exercise that I think everybody should participate in. And then if you're wrong, then you just have to learn, this word's different. It's not Thomas, it's Thomas, It's Ezekiel, not Ezekiel, right? Like, there's...
Easy, Kyle.
Easy, Kyle. Like, oh, wait a minute. We're not there yet. Let's hold off on the violence. Okay, Kyle? It is Free Talk Live, isn't it?
It is.
All right. It's 603-283-6160 if you would like to join us. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me.
Peakless Mountaineer.
We are expecting Mark Edge, however... he seems to be absent. So we
paid for the whole mark and didn't even get the edge.
We didn't even get the edge. Yeah. So he'll either have to make it up to us, or if he decides,
or
crap,
not,
I'm supposed to be on the show tonight, right? If he has that moment wherever he is, hopefully he's all right. I mean, I did try and call him and all that kind of stuff. So,
Always questionable.
well, when you're gallivanting, right? Like sometimes you're a day-to-day kind of guy.
Well, and I mean, it's not like he has avoided making himself a target of the largest mafia ever to exist. So there's that.
I mean, in ways, I guess he kind of has, but like he's survived it anyway.
That's true. That's true.
So
He steps lightly.
He's got some judo about him. That sidestepping that you mentioned. I want to talk tonight about something we always talk about here on Free Talk Live: cryptocurrency.
Ooh.
Yeah. However,
there have been some things going on.
There have, and I want to address a solution to a commonly thrown out, like, this is why Bitcoin sucks, right? And that comment, this is why Bitcoin sucks, is, well, if the power goes down and the internet goes down, you're effed.
Yeah, as if that wasn't the case without Bitcoin.
I understand. However,
I'm sorry, have you ever tried living in the wilds? Because the situation where the power goes out and doesn't come back is also the situation where the trucks aren't bringing food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that.
Yeah, all you homesteaders out there are like, that's right, we've thought of this.
Yeah, and there's plenty of people who are like, it'll be fine. It's like, really? Where do you get your hay? Oh, that's right. You actually rely on this massive network of connections in order to feed your animals in order to get the food.
Right. And like there is, I'm thinking of the Dunbar number for some reason, like within your personal sphere of friendships and family and influence and that kind of thing. There's likely somebody who either owns a farm, runs a farm, or knows the guy who owns a farm and runs a farm, like a local farm that you could buy, like, an annual cut of like a cow, a quarter cow, half a cow, something like that, a pig, quarter pig, half pig, right? They have these things that you can purchase where these farms are humanely raised, grass-fed, all the good stuff. Right, non-GMO. They don't give them the injections. They're not part of the Foster Farms chicken family. That kind of a thing. Right? You can buy meat from independent farmers directly, and I suggest you do.
Oh yeah,
like whoever's listening, even if you don't do it all, if it's not like, oh, it's time to go grocery shopping this week. How are we going to get meat from our independent meat distributor? Well, like no, like buy a freezer. And buy from them, once a month, once a quarter, something like that. Stock up. You'll save a bunch of money.
Oh, yeah.
Just by having it on hand. And then,
go in together for a half or a quarter beef.
Yeah.
Oh, so cheap, so good.
And then, put it to good use.
Yeah. Like stock a big freezer and just pull out when you need it.
Yeah. And rotate. That's really all there is to it. Like, I really, really have been thinking about recently the whole, the stigma against preppers, right? And like they're like, oh well, you guys are just you're conspiracy theories. You guys are afraid. It's like, no, this is just how people actually used to live. Like my grandparents, for example. I'm 51. My grandparents, for example, today
being prepared for anything other than the government to solve all of our problems is insane.
My grandparents today would be considered preppers, but in their day, that's just how people lived, right? They would go out in the wintertime and shoot like a deer or two. And then they would butcher it and they would chop it and they would, share it amongst the family. They'd make sausage out of the, the parts that they couldn't, make cuts out of and freeze and all that kind of stuff. And like that was a big part of groceries that year, right? They would hunt whenever hunting was, whatever season the government decided, whatever season is upon us. They'd go duck hunting, they'd go squirrel hunting, right? I remember eating frogs' legs from like freshly caught frogs. Like, a group of my uncles went out that day and they came back and like, we got tons of frogs to throw on the grill. Like, grandma's like, great, let me have their legs, But like they would can everything, they would jar everything. When they looked at property, they wouldn't look at property that was just like a lawn. They'd look at property with like oh, there's an apple tree and a chokecherry tree and a blah, blah, blah. And raspberries grow in sort of the back quarter of the yard, and asparagus grows in sort of the front area near the ditch, near the road, wildly, and so you would have food, right, available to you just as a condition of existence and working your property, right? So you would look at a property for those reasons, and then you grow in abundance, right? You're like, I'm never going to eat this much zucchini, right, this year, right? So then you can some of it. You make it into other things, zucchini bread or whatever, and you give those away for your gifts at gift-giving times, right? Birthdays and bar mitzvahs or, whatever, all that kind of stuff.
This is actually the origin of both Halloween and Christmas. It's just that Halloween was for the farmers and Christmas was for the ranchers. So it's when you would tally everything up. So once all the harvest is in, then you're like, okay, here's how much I need for seed crop next year. Here's how much I need to, not die.
Yeah.
And here's how much I've got extra.
Right.
And you could say, okay, so from my extra, there's a certain amount that I would like to transform from food into goodwill of my community.
Right.
So that next year, if I have a bad crop and my neighbor doesn't, I don't die.
Right.
And in the process of that, you'd have some people that weren't invited to the party, but they'd show up anyway and say, hey, you should give us something.
Yeah.
and this is where trick or treat came from. Like, hand me a treat or I'll do something to your property. And same thing was in the middle of winter, except they counted up the livestock to figure out how much they could feed and how many they had to go ahead and slaughter because there wasn't enough feed to get them through the winter.
That or else in the trick or treat, that was new to me. I didn't realize trick
That's
or treat
literally trick.
was a threat.
Yes, that's trick or treat. Did you notice that?
I thought it was like, like I'm going to do a trick or you can give me a treat.
No. It's I have a nasty trick for you unless you give me a treat.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, in the caroling, right, where it's bring it right here, bring it right now.
Yeah.
We won't go until we get some. So bring it right here, bring it right now.
You can't eat your meat unless. Wait, no.
You can't eat your pudding unless you eat your meat.
Yeah, you can't. Oh man, I can't remember the lyric now.
Can't have any pudding unless you eat your meat.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's not even Pink Floyd related.
but yeah, trick or treat, and we won't go until we get some is because, hey, we notice you're rich and having a party. You should, hand us some snacks so that we don't break the gate on the way out.
Now I want to go crash some wealthy people's party. It just sounds like fun.
Well, I believe that's the base premise for Wedding Crashers, but anyway.
All right, so this from Blockstream.com. This is from their literal website. It's not a news site. It's they're a business. They're a cryptocurrency business, and what they do is this: the Bitcoin blockchain from space, no internet required. Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. Right? I see the look in your eye. You've got a twinkle that is rarely seen around and rarely heard on radio stations who are broadcasting free.
Pretty hard to hear a twinkle.
Oh, they heard it. I saw it was so spectacular. I heard it. The Blockstream satellite network broadcasts the Bitcoin blockchain around the world 24/7 for free, protecting against network interruptions and providing areas without reliable internet connections with the opportunity to use Bitcoin.
Nice.
I just barely stumbled upon this through rabbit hole, right? You get on the internet, you start reading stuff, and you're like, oh, what's this? I'll click here on the next thing, or something will be recommended to you on the YouTube, for example. You click on that, and that'll lead you to another thing. You click on that. I don't even know how I got here, but I found the website for Blockstream.com, and they're talking about this. And to me, this answers the question of, well, when the power goes down and there's no internet, what are you going to do? Right? I didn't say no power. I said no internet. right? So there's the specific argument about the internet going down and like killing Bitcoin is over, apparently, according to Blockstream.com. Why satellite? Well, the internet is not required. Blockstream's satellite broadcasts the Bitcoin blockchain to the entire planet via satellite, reducing Bitcoin's dependency on internet access. Everyone in the world now has an opportunity to use Bitcoin. Massive cost savings. By eliminating cost barriers, people can now receive blocks at no cost, which allows more people to utilize Bitcoin and participate in the Bitcoin network. Network stability. Blockstream Satellite provides an alternative method for receiving the Bitcoin blockchain that is not affected by connection failure. This protects users against network interruptions and prevents any full node from becoming isolated or partitioned.
So I'll tell you, apart from the obvious reason that this is just marvelous news, what I really appreciate about this. So at some point, granted, in like 140 years, but still, there's going to reach a point where there is no block reward. And, people are rightfully concerned about like, okay, well, are the fees going to be enough? What if there's something that just drives all of the fees down and then they're not, enough to really pay all those miners? And what I've always said that the people who have a bunch of Bitcoin are not going to want it to be worth less. They're going to set up their own miners where even if for some reason there's not fees feeding into it, it's just in their best interest to secure this thing and to make it valuable. And this is, to my mind, a perfect illustration of exactly that. These are the people that are invested in Bitcoin. And here they are, out of pocket, building an infrastructure that is available to everyone.
Right. And this is like, to me, this is pretty fantastic. Like overall, because here is not only the solution to the commonly uttered, well, if the internet goes down, your Bitcoin isn't worth diddly. Right? Not true. First of all, not true. Just that statement in and of itself. Even if this satellite network where you can like have a node that receives a satellite signal with no internet, didn't exist. Like that's still a false statement.
Yeah, the fact that I can go back to civilization and be rich when I get there is worth something.
Or the fact that civilization can rebuild even in small, independent, much smaller than like large cities, right? Mostly today's networks are dependent on big cities. So like I come from a telephony background, but also like internet background, and there's also some like old school networking, trains and telegraph that like subscribe to this. Basically, all of the big cities are hubs for internet data or for telephone data or for trains.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like
commerce, everything.
Yes. In and out. Here comes the trade. Here goes the trade.
And this is a perfect illustration of what I've been saying for a while now, that humanity itself has been, for all of our known history, hub-centric.
Yeah.
Like everything has been, all roads lead to Rome. It's let's get all of these resources together in one place so that we can do some cool stuff with it. And I think that we've passed the threshold where we are now moving from a hub-centered species to a network-centered species. And this is a perfect example of one of those things that is dispersed rather than hubbed.
And like, let's just say the entire internet went down and stayed down. Like, okay, give it, I don't know, a couple of weeks, couple of months before people are building independent mesh networks locally, right? And then it's only a matter of time until a couple of local people decide to string a cable across some land space, an acre, a mile, 10 miles, I don't know, right? But, or can, splice into the existing networks that run along like the railroad network. It's not going to take long for these mesh networks to pop up and recreate the internet that existed previously, except maybe better this time.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah,
and all of a sudden Bitcoin now has value again. I mean, it's
people.
if Bitcoin doesn't have value for some period of time when the internet is down, it's going to be a very short period.
Yeah, people confuse the physical infrastructure that is based on technology, which is admittedly vulnerable, with the ideas and the technology itself. Once you've discovered that a thing can be done and how useful it is once it is done, then it gets done even if the current version of it breaks down. Then okay, let's say that this version of having a global internet breaks down for one reason or another. We're too fond of it. We know it can be done. We know how to do it. And it's too useful to everybody except maybe our leaders or rulers, to be more accurate.
Very good.
For us to leave it undone. So we will absolutely rebuild it because, of course, everyone who engages with that technology gets a tremendous advantage. It's one of those things like if your society chooses not to use gunpowder, that doesn't go well. In the same way, if your society chooses not to rebuild the internet, it won't go well for you. You will be competing at a severe disadvantage to those that do rebuild these communication networks.
Right. And we've already talked about sort of the go-betweens, right? So the internet goes down. Okay, well, ham radio, CB radio, these things still exist. The telegraph, old as it might be, still works, right? Regular telephones, depending on what happened to make the internet go down, like landline telephones might still work because they are independent of these cable internet networks, right? And always have been, because like I think World War I or something, like they were like, no, the telephone network has to be separate and its own independent power source because time of war, right, or something. It was it's a mechanism, a security mechanism, right? We want your phone line to be power independent from your electricity. So if the electricity goes out in your neighborhood, you still can call for help, right? And so that
makes sense. I mean, if you have one system dependent on another system, then the lower level system getting taken out takes out all of the systems on top of it.
Right.
So, I mean, it's one thing to have like, okay, well, our water depends on our electricity.
Yep.
Like, okay, you take out electricity, we can't pump water anymore.
Yeah.
That's troublesome. But if we also can't communicate that, hey, we need to get someone out here to fix this so we can, not die of thirst and, maybe have our waste carted away from us, that's nice, then, yeah, you're in a much worse position.
Right. And so like a regular landline, not one you get through your cable company or your internet company. They like to bundle these things together.
They
now.
do.
But like,
because no one would pay for it otherwise.
Right. And like new construction, you're probably SOL. You're not going to get a copper landline installed in your brand new built house. They probably haven't even run copper to the neighborhood that your house has been built in if you're new construction. 603-283-6160 is the number. What do you think about Bitcoin being transmitted globally via satellite with no need for the internet? Your thoughts are welcome. More Free Talk Live is coming up.
If you've never been to a pawn shop, it's probably not what you're expecting. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Think yard sale, where you can be the buyer or the seller. The cash you need today may be something that's gathering dust right now in your garage or attic. Why wait till next Christmas to re-gift stuff that Santa brought last Christmas? Need power tools? Who cares if that second-hand electric drill is scratched up? It looks like you've been working. When you see someone with a Rolex watch, a real one, can you tell whether they bought it new? Are you ready to pop the question? That diamond took millions of years to create. Who cares if someone else owned it for 3 years? Get the stone remounted. She'll never know. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Pro-Palestinian protests have continued across US campuses. Students are saying they don't want their colleges to support Israel business, given action in Gaza. In New York, students have defied official requests for them to leave the Columbia University campus. Demonstrators have camped on college grounds for more than a week. Sally Patterson reports from Columbia in New York.
Outside Columbia University, protesters chant, "Bring them home." They're demanding the release of hostages still being held in Gaza. And they say what's happening on US campuses across the country is, in their opinion, anti-Semitic. This comes as more and more demonstrations set up at college campuses, demanding that their universities boycott Israel and divest from Israeli companies as the war in Gaza goes on. Sally Patterson, New York.
The first criminal trial against a US president, former leader Donald Trump, is ongoing in New York. He is accused of covering up hush money payments to an adult film star as part of charges of falsifying business records. Week 2 of the trial has centred on former tabloid publisher David Pecker, who says he did a catch-and-kill programme to stop bad stories leaking out about Trump, and he advised his team to pay off adult film star Stormy Daniels. At the same time, the US Supreme Court's 9 justices heard arguments on Thursday on the question of former President Trump's immunity. Whatever opinion they form could have an impact on whether his trial goes ahead on election interference. Chinese President Xi Jinping says the US and China should be partners, not rivals. He was speaking at a meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
The two sides did find areas of cooperation, for example, in climate change and having more cultural exchanges, including more students from both countries, and on the issue of fentanyl and its precursors, with the US keen to stop the flow of fentanyl going into the country from China. But Antony Blinken raised some serious concerns about Chinese components funding Russia's war effort in Ukraine. He also said that Chinese overcapacity was not about limiting China's economy, but really making it a fair and even playing field. Chinese President Xi Jinping also made some comments. He said that he hopes that the US can look at China's development in a positive light. He said this was fundamental in seeing the relationship improve and move forward.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back. Thank you for listening and tuning in to tonight's edition of Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live is a live call-in radio program where you can take control, talk about whatever's on your mind. The telephone number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me.
Peakless Mountaineer.
Who happens to be wearing a Captain Kickass t-shirt.
It's a kick-ass shirt.
I mean, I support that move, you know? Like, thank you.
I mean, who doesn't want to walk around with a label of Captain Kickass on the front of them? Honestly.
You can find Captain Kickass t-shirts at Amazon.com or over at CaptainKickass.com. We have somebody on hold right now, and let's go to him. This is our TikTok. I don't know, what's your title, Jeremy?
Correspondent.
TikTok correspondent Jeremy is joining us on the SIP line. You sound great. What's up?
Thank you. Yeah, you just mentioned the phone number. The SIP number is, or whatever, FTL at ftl.onsip.com. And if you're listening on TikTok, you can just go to the homepage and tap on the phone icon to call.
Ooh,
But,
convenient.
Man, that's fancy.
Man, you keep this up, you're going to get an executive producer credit.
Well, we're now at 8,825 followers. We're trying to get to 10,000.
Nice.
Okay, now I've got nothing from TikTok today, but at the beginning of the show, you were talking about the differences between American English and British English.
It's the boot versus the trunk.
Yeah, so I am from America, but I live in Australia, and my ex-wife, she's Australian. And when she was 13, she did... hold
on. How do you say tower?
I say tower. I still
you haven't been there long enough.
Wait. I have to ask you this.
I've been here 19 years.
Can you say spice rice?
Spice rice.
Now, can you say space race?
Space race.
Oh, you're pretty good. Most Australians say the same thing twice when asked that question. I would like some spice rice, but I'm also involved in the spice rice.
Well, I know you lived in Seattle for a bit, and I come from Washington State, Spokane, and then my family all lives in Seattle.
You can also say Spokane correctly.
Dude.
I think, that's where I was born.
I think we're just going to give him the producer credit.
I think so.
Just based on pronouncing Spokane properly alone, I think that gives you a producer credit.
So I think I've noticed living in other places that the northwest of the U.S. seems to have the least vowel sounds. So I say M-A-R-Y, M-E-R-R-Y, and M-A-R-R-Y, all the same. And they say them completely differently here. They say they're different. They sound the same.
Mary, and Mary. Right? Like, instead of Mary, and Mary.
Yeah. Mary was very merry because she got married. So... No, it made me think of a story.
Everybody started feeling Mary, but Mary didn't like that, so she left.
My ex-wife is Australian, and she, when she was 13, she did a little homestay in America, in Colorado, like a exchange student thing for a few weeks. And she, so I must start by saying that the word fanny in America is like... It's you've heard this.
Yeah, no, it's one of those words that we're allowed to use here. It's sort of the opposite of the C word. We are not allowed to say that word.
Yeah.
It has exactly the same meaning and the same level of dirtiness.
Now here's the thing: if there were an FCC here to ban certain words, then that probably couldn't be on radio or TV. Except we don't. People can say whatever words they want on TV and radio in Australia.
Well,
in fact, Harrison Ford found that out and ended up on the late night talk show here. They ended up having a Harrison Ford swear jar because when he found out that he could swear on TV, he went for it.
Yeah, but he couldn't have a gun while he was swearing.
No.
Right. Yeah.
So
there's a trade-off.
Fanny in America is a polite word for your backside, your bum.
Your booty.
In Australia and elsewhere, it's a dirty word for your front bum, females' front bums, shall we say. And anyway...
Wait, fanny is a word in Australia for front butt on females?
It's also
it's really, I'm telling you, it's the equivalent of the C word, which is not a dirty word over there.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that it's quite the level of the C word, but yeah, it's definitely not something you'd say in front of your grandmother. Where in America, definitely your grandmother would be the one saying
What if
it.
your grandmother was named like Fannie Mae or something?
Well, there you go. And
your grandfather was Freddie Mac?
Named Dick, you got Dick and Fanny. But,
man.
So anyway, and then root in America, it means like to cheer for your team. And here in Australia, it means to have sex. It's not a dirty word, but so she's in.
Wait, does Australia call women birds as well? Because in British,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you want
interesting.
So you're gonna go out on a Friday night and try and root some birds?
Yeah, that's right. So
wow.
So she's 13 years
so the
old.
line root for the home team is much dirtier there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm going. She's 13 years old and she's in Colorado,
That's
staying with
amazing.
a very.
Yeah,
She's
go ahead.
13 years old, staying in Colorado with a very conservative family from Texas, a Christian conservative family, and the 40 or 50 something year old conservative woman comes home and says, "Oh, our fannies are sore because we were sitting in the stands rooting for our favorite team all day." And she just gets these really. She's 13, Australian, and she doesn't know what it means in America, and she's just like, "Well, you're what? Hold on, I know you didn't just
Didn't
say
know that
I
was
heard."
an activity you engaged in.
Oh man,
But I don't know what you're saying.
language is funny.
That's
two nations separated by a common language.
That's amazing. And like there's like you could break that down into smaller microcosms just by traveling around the United States. And as you already mentioned, Jeremy, the West Coast has like this weird sort of like they try to avoid the staccato but like pronounce the syllables. But like here in the Northeast, the traditional accent is like almost removing like the R's and stuff, right? Like I'm gonna park my car around the corner. Right? Like that's.
I know it's weird.
Yeah.
Because the thing that Americans share with Irish people, and sometimes people, when you're not living in America or Ireland, sometimes people confuse Americans for Irish people, which is so weird. But it's because we both pronounce our R's strongly, but Boston, which is made up of a lot of Irish people, is the part of America where they drop the R's. What's with that?
Do not expect me to explain anything about Boston, especially how they speak.
It's definitely different, that's for sure. Like, I wonder if it's a British thing.
Well, and I feel like
I wanted to call to talk to Riley, but you weren't there at the beginning. I hear you.
Sorry, Riley is here now. Mark Edge has Valmorphinized himself. He has Valmorphinized himself. And has now taken over the body of Riley Blake, who is here now joining us on the show tonight.
Well, I look at it
Mark,
this way.
Now that you've occupied Riley, how do you feel about the Free State Project?
I love the Free State Project.
Wait. I'm sorry, Riley. You have to preface everything with, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. America. I mean, I have my criticisms of the Free State Project as an organization, but I love the idea of bringing people together for liberty.
Just not you.
Well, he brought himself here.
I'm here. So.
Either way, right? Whether he's Mark or Riley.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right. So, Riley, I haven't heard you say how your 420 event went.
Oh, I haven't updated anybody on it yet. Should I do that now?
Why not?
No time like the present.
All right,
we are on air.
Let's do it now. So it went pretty well. I do play bagpipes, so I brought those and played for everybody while they were smoking their weed. And I had a few hits and had some edibles, and it was a wonderful time.
Shouldn't you rename them bong pipes?
Maybe I should.
Or at least for that day.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, the moment he mentioned it, I'm like, I wonder, is there a way that you could combine these technologies? I'm pretty sure there's not.
At the end of
but
each stem of the bagpipes, so that when you're doing the bagpipes, you're actually also taking a hit somehow.
Oh man, that would be wild. Wow.
Can you fake a cough from the bag itself? While
Jeremy,
you
what
play the
have you
pipes?
done to us? Look at the havoc you've caused.
Way to go, Jeremy. Way to go.
I can't think of bagpipes without thinking of Ross from Friends trying to play them at his sister's wedding.
That's really funny.
Wow.
Oh man.
All right, so what else is on your mind, Jeremy?
Nothing else. You've got everything that was in my mind.
All right. Well, thanks for the call, man. Call us again next time.
And thank you again for your service.
Of course, yes, please.
Of course, absolutely. That's important.
Shout out to Jeremy, our TikTok correspondent.
Yeah, and I especially
building
love
that audience.
The more they fight against TikTok, the more I'm happy that we're involved in it.
Yeah, it does make it nice to be part of some civil disobedience now that a man in a meat suit with a title has banned TikTok. Can you believe the gall of these people to believe that a man in a meat suit has the right or the ability to do that?
Well, I mean, look, we knew they weren't going to let us keep the internet forever. I mean, they've been trying, as they might, to basically dominated by corporations that they control. But even that is starting to break down because, eventually...
They can't keep everybody in a corral, and it scares them.
Right. So you have the TikTok ban, which, I mean, every time that they've tried to ban this thing that I've looked at, it is very easy to expand that to everything. And there's also this internet access service provider thing that is basically requiring people to identify themselves in order to use like virtual private networks and things like that.
Right. They want you to present ID when you log on to the internet, as
they
I
want to know
understand
who's
it.
going where and why.
Right. I first heard of this proposal in front of porn sites. So the first time I heard of something like this, it was, we want anybody who's going to log on to insert porn site here.
Pornhub.
Yeah, okay, let's
It
go
is
with that
the
one.
number one.
If you want to log into Pornhub, you must present KYC.
And, shout out to them for, using cryptocurrency.
Right. Well, yeah, they had
Utah.
to.
Utah.
Oh, yeah,
banned-
because of Operation Choke Point.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say
1.0.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that Utah banned Pornhub last year.
Utah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
where music is not allowed.
From what I've heard, if you go to the website,
I'm kidding.
You get a message saying that this site now requires you to have ID if you want to use the site in the state of Utah.
When I was in Washington State before I came here, so pre-2019, I was using Shapeshift, right? Because you could, right? It was just available. Some guy, Eric Voorhees, put up a website. He's been on this show prior to me being here, but I still follow him because he's still like a leader in crypto tech and stuff like that. He just moved his operation outside of the U.S. because he felt he had to. But there was a period of time where Shapeshift was just, everybody could just access it wherever you were on the internet. And at some point, it became sort of a state-by-state thing. So if your IP address was a Washington State IP address on your computer, and you went to shapeshift.io or shapeshift.com, it would be like, sorry, the government has told us that we're not allowed in your state. Like, it specifically called out whatever state you were from because it read your IP address before it presented you the graphic and all that kind of stuff. It was, in retrospect, it was pretty neat. At the time, I was like, this is annoying, right? And that's how I learned VPNs, right? Because I'm like, I go on and I'm like, hey, I can't get to Shapeshift anymore. And it was like a thing I was able to do the day before,
right,
or the day before that, and weeks before that. But like one day, I was just like, "Oh, you're in Washington State. You're not allowed. You bad boy. You shame, Captain. You shame." Right? That's what it felt like.
It's just ridiculous that these so-called government gangs want to restrict our flow. They want to restrict where they can take where we can go on the internet.
Yeah, the arbitrary nature of federal laws really struck home with me when someone pointed out that if in 1933 one man had a gold coin in his pocket and the other a flask of whiskey, one of them would be legal this year and not the other, but that would be swapped by a year from then. And it's arbitrary and it's insane. And they just want to control absolutely everything that people do. And sure, they will say, oh, well, we're trying to stop this, we're trying to stop that. It's never the case. Like, if they wanted to stop child porn, they would stop the FBI from creating it.
Of course they would, but they don't want to stop child porn. It makes marketing child porn to kids so much easier.
Yeah, they are the largest distributor, and they keep adding new material. So riddle me that one.
It's like nobody is paying attention. The conservatives think that the traffickers are in the foreign countries, but really the traffickers are the FBI and the CIA and your own government.
Oh, yeah. And that is always something that they use. Oh, well, we're not going after Americans with this. We're going after other people. We just happen to be going after Americans while we do it.
Of course, this is how they define people or whatever words they want to use in their legalese language that most of us don't understand.
So I want to get back to this bit about Blockstream.com and how their solution for no internet for the blockchain for Bitcoin works. Blockstream satellite ground stations known as teleports. What well, will teleportation finally become a thing? We told that would happen by the year 2000.
Who told you that?
Like the Jetsons, the Simpsons, the Flintstones.
Oh, the Jetsons did have teleporting, didn't they? Then why did they need to drive to work?
Really
Flying
poorly,
car or not?
Poorly produced films in public school told us that we'd have hovercraft by the year 2000.
Oh, we do. They're just not legal.
Well, no, like they made it out to be like, no, we won't have cars anymore. Cars will have been replaced.
Well, we would have if they were legal.
Right. Bureaucracy got the hell out of the way.
We absolutely could have replaced ground vehicles entirely by now.
Yes.
Except that bureaucracy has stopped it from occurring.
So what you're saying, Peakless, is government has stood in the way of innovation. We don't have flying cars because the government is standing in the way?
Yeah, the government does not want you to have flying cars.
Surprise.
They want to have
organization standing in the way of progress.
Yeah, they want to have their helicopters, which they, of course, can always get the FAA to approve, and they do not want you to have the same abilities. It's always the case. It's too empowering for the average person, and that is the bane of their existence.
Yeah, so do you guys know why we don't have more like 3D printing manufacturing than we currently do? Because it was cheaper to outsource it to foreign countries than it was to build the mechanisms necessary to 3D print materials.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Right? Like you could still hire people in third world countries for, a dime a day or whatever it was. I'm making stuff up here. I don't know the actual figures. But it was less expensive for a company to have something manufactured or partially manufactured in a third world country by paying them, wages that made them wealthy at that point, but like we were laughable by us, right? So as opposed to building the mechanisms that were necessary to eliminate that part of production and make it better with 3D printing. So that
that sounds like a temporary change right there.
Right, but it hasn't happened. And then what happened with the technology, of course, is the same thing that always happens. It becomes stifled because now the bureaucrats are like, well, we'll need an agency to oversee the regulations of the 3D printer, whatever it is, right? This is how government always operates. Whenever a new technology becomes popular,
they got to regulate it. They got to regulate it.
Be like, oh my gosh, this isn't safe.
Yeah, this is making people too powerful. Can't let them have that.
Right.
Can't let them have cheap housing. How are we supposed to run our money scam? Yeah.
Amen. So Blockstream.com, how it works. Blockstream satellite ground stations, known as teleports, participate in the Bitcoin network and transmit blocks to geosynchronous satellites. Geosynchronous satellites orbiting at an altitude of 35,786 kilometers receive the signal from the Blockstream and broadcast it across a wide portion of the Earth. Anyone in the coverage area with a small satellite antenna and an inexpensive USB receiver can receive these blocks and ensure their node is always in sync. And then they show like a coverage map, which appears to be most of planet Earth.
Nice.
It's amazing that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency can be transmitted through satellites because, like you were saying earlier, the network's going to go down. Someone's going to find a way to connect to those satellites up there. And
Bitcoin is network agnostic. It doesn't care. It will run on any network. If all you have is the terrestrial train system in the United States, it doesn't care. It'll find a way to run on that.
Right. Yeah, no, if you are down to the Pony Express, this is such a powerful technology that even the most inefficient version of it, because it makes an absolutely sound money, will give you an advantage.
It's going to take longer. So, for example, I want to pay Riley. Riley is 4 kingdoms to the west, right? I hire you, Peakless. You're the Peakless Express, right? I write some information down on a piece of paper. I put it in an envelope. I put this kick-ass seal on it in wax or whatever, and I send it to you, or I give it to you, and I'm like, deliver this to Riley. And you do. You traverse the countryside. You go 4 kingdoms over, and you get to Riley's kingdom, and you're like, here you go, Sir Riley. This is from the captain.
Oh,
and he opens it up. He says, thank you. Tell Captain thanks, whatever. He opens it up.
Captain, Riley says thanks.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Riley. You're welcome. I'm beautiful. You're welcome. Riley then updates his ledger with this new information, and the transaction has completed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? Like, so Bitcoin doesn't care what kind. It can transmit over the old Pony Express mail system.
Yeah. Now,
It
that
doesn't
being
care.
said, the particular network that you use will change the kinds of distributed ledgers that emerge.
Right.
So that, like, yeah, if you then end up back in a situation where you can talk to the rest of the world, they probably still have the ones that were running in the first place, and you have a fork.
Yes.
You have this local fork that, like, okay, well, we've had to do this inefficient way of communicating with each other.
Yeah.
So because of that, we're not going to have the absolute number one amount of hash power because we haven't had that kind of computing power. But this has been effective for us, so we're not going to just give it up either.
Yeah.
So now we have a fork, and that fork will be worth whatever it's worth in comparison to the existing blockchains.
All you need within your local community is someone who has some accounting skills, some good accounting skills, right? But like some accounting skills to update their ledger, right? Cryptocurrency technology is based on the traditional ledger, right?
It's been made simple that way.
Right. The green and white, paper that's, it's two things, and like as long as they balance out, everything's cool.
Yeah, it's just 3 entries instead of 2.
Right, exactly. And
the third entry being time.
And so it can be done by like some scribes with some math skills, right? Right? Like from community to community. You show up at Riley's Kingdom with this thing. Riley goes, "Hey, scribes, we have this new data," and they update their local copy of the ledger, quote unquote, and now all of a sudden they're up to date. It's not gonna be instantaneous transactions like it is on the internet, but the transactions still compute. They still balance. They still are trustless, unlike statist technology that relies on centralization and a central authority to issue and make sure the currency is, quote, safe, unquote.
And because you have this system where it's available to everyone all the time, you don't have this central set of people who have all of the money, making it so that 1 penny a day is actually really, really valuable to these people over here, but not valuable to me.
603-283-6160. Do you believe that if the internet went down, that Bitcoin would be useless? If so, give us a call. More Free Talk Live is coming up.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Pro-Palestinian protests have continued across US campuses. Students are saying they don't want their colleges to support Israel business, given action in Gaza. In New York, students have defied official requests for them to leave the Columbia University campus. Demonstrators have camped on college grounds for more than a week. Sally Patterson reports from Columbia in New York.
Outside Columbia University, protesters chant, "Bring them home." They're demanding the release of hostages still being held in Gaza. And they say what's happening on US campuses across the country is, in their opinion, anti-Semitic. This comes as more and more demonstrations set up at college campuses, demanding that their universities boycott Israel and divest from Israeli companies as the war in Gaza goes on. Sally Patterson, New York.
The first criminal trial against a US president, former leader Donald Trump, is ongoing in New York. He is accused of covering up hush money payments to an adult film star as part of charges of falsifying business records. Week 2 of the trial has centred on former tabloid publisher David Pecker, who says he did a catch-and-kill program to stop bad stories leaking out about Trump, and he advised his team to pay off adult film star Stormy Daniels. At the same time, the US Supreme Court's 9 justices heard arguments on Thursday on the question of former President Trump's immunity. Whatever opinion they form could have an impact on whether his trial goes ahead on election interference.
Trump's lawyers, of course, have argued that he should be immune. That's why this case has come all the way up to the Supreme Court. They say in all the events leading up to January 6th, to the Capitol attack, all the conversations he had, he was acting in an official capacity as president in the White House at the time, and therefore that he shouldn't be tried.
Chinese President Xi Jinping says the US and China should be partners, not rivals. He was speaking at a meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
The two sides did find areas of cooperation, for example, in climate change and having more cultural exchanges, including more students from both countries, and on the issue of fentanyl and its precursors, with the US keen to stop the flow of fentanyl going into the country from China. But Antony Blinken raised some serious concerns about Chinese components funding Russia's war effort in Ukraine. He also said that Chinese overcapacity was not about limiting China's economy, but really making it a fair and even playing field. Chinese President Xi Jinping also made some comments. He said that he hopes that the US can look at China's development in a positive light. He said this was fundamental in seeing the relationship improve and move forward.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. A trial of the world's first ever personalised vaccine against the deadliest form of skin cancer is now underway in the United Kingdom. The mRNA vaccine works by telling the body to hunt down melanoma cells and stop the disease coming back. It's personalised, so its exact makeup is changed for every patient. Oncologist Dr. Jeffrey Weber led earlier clinical trials in the United States.
We're going to generate killer cells that are going to seek out and find the tumor and get rid of it. And if we get to the point where you can literally prevent almost everyone from relapsing, that's a gigantic win.
US President Joe Biden has said he would be happy to debate Donald Trump, his likely rival for the White House. This change of tack comes after months of him refusing to commit to an on-stage appearance with Trump. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
Joe Biden spoke to radio host Howard Stern on Friday, during which he was asked about the chances of a Biden-Trump debate.
I don't know if you're going to debate your opponent.
I am somewhere. I don't know when. I'm happy to debate him.
Donald Trump has been spending several months pushing Biden to commit to a formal, televised, on-stage debate, and there's been pressure from television networks, all looking for an agreement from President Biden. Keeping with tradition, 3 presidential debates have been scheduled for September and October, but it's been unclear if they'll go ahead. In 2020, the two men only managed 2 debates. Trump pulled out of the third after testing positive for COVID-19. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
I'm Caroline Malone in Washington, and that was the week in review.
It's a landmark day in the March for Equality here in America. Congress passed the Casinos for Fairness Act today, which gives every mistreated group in America the right to open a casino.
It worked with Native Americans. It will work for the rest of the country. If our society has kept you down, you will get a casino to pull yourselves back up.
Veterans will also have the right to open a casino as a replacement for costlier benefit programs.
I think it'd be nice to have a casino. I mean, I'd rather still be able to walk, but, you know.
While the majority of the country is hailing the Casino Act as a step forward, many Native Americans are objecting to the law.
We are still the most disadvantaged group in America. So all that we ask is that we be allowed to open whorehouses and start legally selling cocaine.
The bill raised the question of whether immigrants should be allowed to own casinos. After much debate, the legislature decided that they would not, but they will be able to sell sliced mango on the street without a vendor license.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Welcome back. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to Free Talk Live. The telephone number here in the studio, should you wish to call, is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it is myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me,
Riley,
and Peakless Mountaineer.
Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Are you tired of the ever-inflating U.S. dollar?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Like you wouldn't believe.
You can live your life on Dash with bitrefill.com, where you can buy gift cards from big retailers, including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and easy to use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. All right. We've been talking about, well, a bunch of things, but we've been trying to get through this bit from blockstream.com/satellite, where it answers the question, what happens to your Bitcoin? Is your Bitcoin worthless if the internet goes down? Well, it turns out, no. They got some satellites going on out there, and all you need is a special node with a radio antenna to receive transmission of the block. We've learned that these ground stations are known as teleports. They participate in the Bitcoin network and transmit blocks to geosynchronous satellites. Anyone in the coverage area with a small satellite antenna and an inexpensive USB receiver can receive these blocks and ensure that their node is always in sync. Additionally, each Blockstream satellite teleport also receives blocks from other teleports around the world to ensure the teleports themselves do not become partitioned. So for those who aren't technical, it's just a check and balance against the rest of the network to make sure nobody's cheating.
And that's the nice thing about the Bitcoin network is there are checks and balances.
Mm-hmm.
As people send their transactions through the network and receive transactions, there are checks and balances to make sure everything is up to date.
And I want to point out checks and balances that actually work,
right?
Unlike the checks and balances that supposedly exist in the political system that do not work.
Yeah, it turns out when you investigate yourself, it's very easy to find that you're not guilty of any wrongdoing.
Huh, weird. So regarding the Blockstream.com satellite network, the entire network forms a ring around the planet to ensure that the Bitcoin network has full redundancy. And they, of course, cite some detailed maps for where you can, where the satellite coverage currently exists. You can get one of these inexpensive USB / radio nodes for yourself. And then they also have a link to visit them on GitHub, GitHub project. Visit our open source project and get support using our software. So on top of all of the things that we've talked about so far, that it solves the internet's down problem of keeping the blockchain up to date, it's open source.
Right.
like that's the icing on the cake for this thing. Like, it solves this problem. It renders the whole hopelessness of the internet's down and now I'm poor. Like, no, you're not.
You can create, I don't know if you can create money generally, but at least if you know how Bitcoin is set up, you can find a way to restart a seed somehow, if you will.
Yeah, and one thing that I really love about this is, there is kind of a really disgusting entanglement between the internet as it exists and the American military system that basically created it. And one of the things that this allows, so when you have this independent system everywhere on Earth that allows transmission of money, transmission of value, you have the ability to create infrastructure wherever it is useful. So even if somehow there's we flipped the switch on this and now the internet can only be done with our explicit whitelist permission, okay, we now have the ability to very easily fund our own ability to build a better internet that is not subject to all of your regulation.
Right.
And the nice thing about building a better internet is that we can circumvent the government and go beyond their rules and regulations and build our own networks.
Right. And the simple truth of the matter is that government regulation is responsible for the majority of the poverty of Earth. And that's been that way for a good long time.
Also responsible for the majority of death.
Yeah. So anywhere where we would like productivity to work, we can just fund it into existence now. Anywhere where we want to be away from the death machine, it's available now.
Yeah, and it's only going to continue growing. Dear anyone, seriously, if you're listening to this program,
Mr. and Mrs. America,
if you're listening to this, particularly if you work in some government capacity, just quit your job now, because you're going to be better off getting a head start. The blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is coming for your job. Cryptocurrency, the blockchain specifically, will replace all of the bureaucracy that mankind needs with decentralized, autonomous record keeping, making you obsolete. So you might still be collecting a paycheck right now, today. That paycheck is getting ready to go bye-bye. Now, two things happen when governments persecute cryptocurrency. One, they drive the cryptocurrency further underground. And two, the further underground they drive the cryptocurrency, the more innovation happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they just leave cryptocurrency alone, innovation happens of its own accord, because people are still trying to solve problems and compete in a marketplace. But once you drive it underground, now you're incentivizing them to solve the problem that government has just created by driving it underground.
Yeah.
And they always do. There's a solution to everything government has ever done against cryptocurrency. And it's just about the developers going, oh, yeah, we can fix that. We'll just route over here and change this thing and blah, 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 and it's done.
Well, and this is a big part of that whole movement from the hub to the network. See, a hub is a central point of failure. So you have something to attack, something to destroy, something to regulate and control.
And that's what they want. They want hubs where they can take them out and make people reliant on their own systems to communicate. If they can take out a hub, then they can say, oh, we're going to build our own networks and whatever, and the people have to come through us to communicate again.
Right. But the thing is that regulation only slows these things down.
Right.
So, all right, take, for example, Coinbase, for instance. Okay, sure. Here is a centralized point that you can, in fact, regulate. However, if you regulate them, that means they have to spend time, energy, money, and resources on obeying you. That means that everything else that does the same job in a decentralized way has that much of an advantage over Coinbase. So when they compete with this central thing that you're trying to use to control this network, you're actually enhancing our ability to circumvent that control. It's an anti-fragile thing. And this is the fundamental shift that they are not prepared for.
Yeah.
Every attack that they make on centralized points, whether it's to destroy them or to control them, only gives us a greater incentive to go around them.
Absolutely. And they want to control us, it seems like. By the way they're attacking the money system, by the way they're attacking cryptocurrencies, by the way they went after the founder of this show and put him in a cage for buying and selling Bitcoin. We are now living in a world where they're going to attack the money system by saying, oh, well, you can't have a Bitcoin wallet with your own keys now. We want the keys.
Yeah, they're going to demand you register.
We want your keys.
They want you to register your Bitcoin. So if you have some Bitcoin already and nobody knows about it, try and keep it that way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because they will do... It's kind of like when they confiscated the gold right here in the U.S., they sent out a message like, please bring your gold to the bank, and
we'll give you some money for it.
We'll give you a certificate that says you put that much in it, but we need to be holding on to it.
Yeah.
In the same way, they want you to register your Bitcoin. You have Bitcoin, register it.
And, you know, fun fact, you brought that gold in at $20 an ounce. We just changed the price to $35.
Right.
So if you want to buy gold back when it becomes legal,
you have to pay
good
more
luck.
again. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
And that's how government works.
And here's the real beauty of the difference, though. Okay, so when they confiscated everyone's gold, okay, everybody knows it's illegal to own gold now. So that means your grocer, your landlord, they cannot be seen accepting gold for goods and services. So immediately that network power of payment is destroyed.
Yeah.
However, with Bitcoin, number one, you don't see anything. It all gets carried on behind the scenes. You have no idea who this wallet or that wallet actually belongs to. And number two, the very essence of it is trade. Like with gold, you can have a thing and never trade it. With Bitcoin, you cannot have that thing and never trade it. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
The nature of it is that it cannot end the ability to trade it, and it still exists.
Right.
And at this point, they've basically realized that they can't destroy this thing. I mean, they attempted to drive the price low enough that it would just start collapsing last time, because there is a 4-year cycle to these things, and it's not completely exclusive to Bitcoin. But there's definitely a timing to this issue, which is when they destroyed FTX, that was a very cleverly timed attack. So they attempted to suppress this price as much as possible, and they drove it lower than it was expected to go, and it simply wasn't enough.
Maybe that's why the price is kind of low ever since the halving, is they're trying to keep it low by making people afraid of Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, right now we have the incentive from BlackRock and Fidelity and all of them. They want this price as low as possible so that they can pick it up before they sell it to everyone else.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
It sure sounds that way.
Right. So, and the beauty of cryptocurrency is that it never closes.
Right.
There's no opening and closing.
Right, there's
It
no
doesn't
opening
take,
bell at 8 a.m. New York time. There's none of that.
Right. It doesn't take weekends off.
No, it doesn't. It keeps trading around the world every single day.
Right. So when BlackRock wants to sell you the ETF, that happens during the day. Because BlackRock does keep bankers' hours, but when they want to buy the Bitcoin to back it, they'll do that in the middle of the night so that they don't drive the prices up while the prices are being driven up. It's very clever.
But
my point, though, is that they can no longer destroy this, and they've basically given up trying, with the exception of, like, Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
But, I mean, essentially, you can't make it illegal without making all information illegal. So there's very little chance of actually even making an honest attempt at destroying this. But what they are trying to do is control it. Put it behind an ETF. You can't be trusted with this power.
Right, yeah.
We gotta have
can
the
be
power
trusted.
because we are the power.
Yes. We are verified investors. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'm accredited. What does that mean? I'm really rich.
We must remind everyone why they need us.
Exactly.
And
So
that's why government is so dangerous. Is they use violence, they use threats, they use coercion to say, we need to show you why you need us because you will depend on our survival and you will like it.
yeah.
And that's what they do every single time.
And the sad truth is that it's working right now because the fact is that people do not want to be responsible. And
People
I can't
are-
really blame them because they've grown up in a circumstance where being responsible was a detriment.
Sadly, public schooling, the corporate/government fascist control over media has conditioned the regular human being across the globe, but also in the United States, to subscribe to a fear-based existence.
That's absolutely right.
And so, as they put out their propaganda on, your favorite news channel, whether it's CNN, NBC, ABC, Al Jazeera, CNBC, whatever it is, whatever the channel it is that you're watching, it's all propaganda from, a slightly different perspective, but
Absolutely.
it's all propaganda.
Yep.
All of it's propaganda. And it is conditioning you to exist in a constant state of fear so that when they put out something that you find particularly fearful, you react in their desired way.
They want to keep us afraid because when we live in fear, we're easily controlled.
Yeah.
Fear
and
anger go hand in hand because when people are afraid, they're going to get angry.
I couldn't have said that any better. Yeah. People who are afraid are easily controlled.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is that holding on to 12 words is too much responsibility for the majority of people right now.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's true. And that line of being willing to go, okay, I will do this for myself, is going to be the line in the sand of who has the advantage over the next century and who doesn't.
Yeah, very, very likely. We do have some news regarding the Crypto 6. The NBC Boston series, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Something about
Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of New Hampshire.
Yes,
thank you.
That's it.
Released 2 new episodes yesterday or the day before. Might have been yesterday. And episode number 12 is the part 2 of the Crypto 6. So they did a part 1, I think episode 10, when they released the other portion of them.
Yeah.
And so they just released 12 and 13. Episode 12 is about the Crypto 6, and episode 13 is more focused on the Free State Project. So I watched it. Have you guys watched?
I have.
I have
Yeah,
not.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like the biggest thing is just the federal agencies did not want to comment until sentencing was over.
Right.
And now that they've commented, okay, here's your episode. So here's the other side of it.
What I don't like about it is these federal agents are put in. It's kind of like
We are the heroic protectors of people who wanted to spend their own money
I remember-
when we knew that
government
was
is the
not
heroes,
right,
of course.
a right choice for them.
Like the thing opens well enough with Ian giving an eloquent questioning, a Socratic method, if you will, saying, just look at this building. Right? People sit in pews and, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. And like, it's a church and people don't even know it. Right? So it starts out with him just pointing out like that, yes, if you are a statist, you are part of a cult.
Yeah.
It is a cult. It's a religion, right? These guys come out with black robes on, you have to follow all of this ridiculous sort of procedure that reminds me of very cult-like behavior, stuff you find in religions, et cetera, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, when when discussing religions, a lot of people dismiss the fact that there has always been a tradition of games, gamifying the supernatural concepts that are espoused by every given religion. And what is it? It is a court. And just like a basketball or tennis court, there is a game that is played according to traditional rules. And in that game that is played according to traditional rules, it is a battle of good and evil in which good always wins.
Yeah.
Because it's a religion.
Maybe that's why Christians are cheering on a war, because they believe they're the good guys, and if they cheer on this war with Israel and fund Israel, then maybe their God is going to come back and save them. And to me, this is a really sad way to look at bringing your God back.
Well, it's funny how the good guys always win in history.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if that's what you believe, then of course you're going to cheer on war. War is just another opportunity for the good guys to beat the bad guys, because that's what happens every time.
Absolutely. They think they're the good guys, though.
Yeah, never mind the fact that if you drop a nuke on innocent people, you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Always and forever.
The thing that I really didn't like about this episode 2 was the filming techniques that they used for the bureaucrats, the prosecution, right? Never mind their personal demeanors and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting to me, like they waited until Georgiana, one of the lead prosecutors, was fully pregnant to film her segment. And so, you have this like, oh, she's just a pregnant woman trying to make a difference, right? You have this like sort of, I don't know, like they tried to make it.
It's the defense of the pastoral. That's fundamentally what it is. See, we are the side of defending women and children against devious people like you.
And I will say that
the whole thing has always been this conflation between using cryptocurrency and romance scams.
The 3 people who they presented on like the side of the government, the prosecution, with the exception of Georgiana being pregnant, the other 2 were women, although I suspect, based on their hairstyle and attire, that they are not hetero women. So like there's this whole like visual thing here about, like you're saying, about like, hey, we're protecting the sort of the underground, the unaccepted, right? That
they
kind of
make
thing.
It look like they're
but they used these camera techniques. So like the first time I remember realizing that I've been being techniqued, right, was watching the televised trial of Oliver North back in like the early 90s, right? And so what they did is they would position the cameras down below to look up at the judges and that kind of thing, and they would position the cameras above to look down upon Oliver North.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's definitely visual manipulation right there.
Right. Yeah. It absolutely
But
is.
what would I know about visual manipulation?
Although, to be fair, that is the structure of the courtroom. That's part of the show.
Absolutely. And like, of course, whoever's producing this, whatever it was, not CNN, but what's the...
NBC, I believe it was.
No, what's the
NBC
channel that
Boston.
shows all the courtroom stuff all the time? Congress,
C-SPAN.
C-SPAN, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Whoever was producing for C-SPAN at that time was like, hey, I'm just going to play up on this a little bit. Look, they're up and he's down and that kind of thing. So it had an effect on public opinion.
Yeah, it's the same reason that a lot of convenience stores will make it so that their tellers are behind the counter uplifted so they appear taller, so that there's a little bit more of an intimidation factor for anyone who's thinking about robbing the place, is because they want them to be literally above you. It's the same reason that the judge sits in an elevated position above all of the people who are supposedly his bosses in the pews who are observing this very religious interaction.
People need to realize the government is just a terrifying religion.
Truly.
It certainly is. 603-283-6160 is the number if you'd like to call, if you've seen episode 12 of this NBC Boston series and want to comment on it. More Free Talk Live is on its way. Stay tuned.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Pro-Palestinian protests have continued across US campuses. Students are saying they don't want their colleges to support Israel business, given action in Gaza. In New York, students have defied official requests for them to leave the Columbia University campus. Demonstrators have camped on college grounds for more than a week. Sally Patterson reports from Columbia in New York.
Outside Columbia University, protesters chant, "Bring them home." They're demanding the release of hostages still being held in Gaza. And they say what's happening on US campuses across the country is, in their opinion, anti-Semitic. This comes as more and more demonstrations set up at college campuses, demanding that their universities boycott Israel and divest from Israeli companies as the war in Gaza goes on. Sally Patterson, New York.
The first criminal trial against a US president, former leader Donald Trump, is ongoing in New York. He is accused of covering up hush money payments to an adult film star as part of charges of falsifying business records. Week 2 of the trial has centred on former tabloid publisher David Pecker, who says he did a catch-and-kill program to stop bad stories leaking out about Trump, and he advised his team to pay off adult film star Stormy Daniels. At the same time, the US Supreme Court's 9 justices heard arguments on Thursday on the question of former President Trump's immunity. Whatever opinion they form could have an impact on whether his trial goes ahead on election interference. Chinese President Xi Jinping says the US and China should be partners, not rivals. He was speaking at a meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
The two sides did find areas of cooperation, for example, in climate change and having more cultural exchanges, including more students from both countries, and on the issue of fentanyl and its precursors, with the US keen to stop the flow of fentanyl going into the country from China. But Antony Blinken raised some serious concerns about Chinese components funding Russia's war effort in Ukraine. He also said that Chinese overcapacity was not about limiting China's economy, but really making it a fair and even playing field. Chinese President Xi Jinping also made some comments. He said that he hopes that the US can look at China's development in a positive light. He said this was fundamental in seeing the relationship improve and move forward.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Yes, we are professionals. It's Free Talk Live. That guy thought it was funny. He said, ha ha.
Are we professionals, though? I mean, really? Are we really professionals?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we're doing a radio show. We might as well be.
We are. It's nationally syndicated in the whole 9 yards, man. I mean,
it's true.
You know, we're sitting here in a bona fide radio studio at the Free Talk Live
But our
studio
occasional
location.
suffering of technicalities is just part of our charm.
Yeah.
It's the way we do a show. We do it live, after all.
How are people supposed to know that we're not, secretly funded by, well, anybody?
Like, this is the
Except
evidence.
we occasionally screw up.
Yeah, that's how you know we're not funded by really anyone.
We're not funded by the government. We're not funded by the BBC or National Public Radio.
We're not secretly funded by anybody.
So
we
right.
are openly funded.
Overtly funded by the AMPS program, which stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. The AMPS program can be found over at amps.freetalklive.com if you would like to help advertise, market, promote, and support this show. That money primarily goes to trying to get us onto more radio stations. We only ask for $5 a month. You can give more than that. Today's amplifier is Keith Boone. Keith Boone is a gold level amplifier, which means he actually gives $10 a month instead of the minimum of $5, because arguably he believes that spreading the message of liberty is so important, he's willing to put his money where his mouth is. And since Free Talk Live broadcasts liberty, peace, prosperity, every time it's on the air, he feels like his $10 is worth it. So if you'd like to help us get on more radio stations and be broadcast in more avenues and all that kind of stuff, please visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. Thank you again, Keith Boone. We appreciate you. All right, we've been talking about this solution from Blockstream where they have some satellites out in space rotating around that communicate with these terrestrial devices that continuously update the blockchain, Bitcoin blockchain, and thus sort of solves the problem of, well, is Bitcoin even going to be worth anything once the government takes the internet down? Yeah. Because we've already proven that cryptocurrency can be transmitted over any network: radio, telegraph, telegram, television, any of the teles, right? Yeah, except for the Telecaster. That's a guitar. But if you played the right notes to make the right mathematical equation, you could write a riff that is your 12 words of the phrase. And, therefore, we already know that people can embed seed phrases inside of paintings, like fine art and stuff like that, because it's been done.
Come to think of it, every note is, in fact, a very, very poor wallet. Because every note has a frequency, right? And that frequency is a number. And as we've discussed previously, every number is a wallet. They're just not very good wallets because they can be guessed.
Yeah, I say this all the time, and I'll say it again because I think it bears repeating. Music is the language of emotion for human beings, right? And it's, language agnostic. It doesn't care what you speak. People who don't speak the language and hear a good song go, man, I like that song, regardless of their language. So music crosses the language barrier. Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, for example, is the language of money.
Of value.
Of value. The language of the transmission of value, of barter, right? It is the expression of value. In the same way music is the expression of emotion, cryptocurrency, the blockchain, is an expression of value.
And this is why it's so important for us to understand that Bitcoin does have value, because it's created for this purpose, to convey value.
Right.
And what's extraordinary is that both of them are ultimately math.
Yes.
Like both. So
Correct.
With music, I mean, so you've got, meter and time and all of that.
Yep.
But even the notes themselves, fundamentally what we recognize about them is their ratio to each other.
Yes.
And it's because they have a ratio that is not too simple and not too complicated that it comes through as music instead of just noise.
Yeah. And the other thing that I find very, very compelling about cryptocurrency, blockchain, Bitcoin, privacy currencies, Monero, spending currencies, Dash, all that kind of stuff, is that there have been many, many books written on anarchist philosophy, right? Old books from olden times, from 100 years ago, et cetera, and so on, where like, we're not sitting here. We're not the first people to talk about like decentralization.
Shout out to Lysander Spooner.
Absolutely. And all that kind of thing. But I find it really, I find it funny, like humorous, that mathematics proves anarchist theory with Bitcoin, with cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Right? Like, anarchist theory for the longest time was like ridiculed, and it still is. I mean, but like it's growing in popularity because, well, the internet, more people have access to more information. An idea like this is going to grow where like it's not about having no rules. It's about having no rulers. Right. And so within that, the only way for people really to begin to hop on board with anarchist philosophy is for there to be anarchist infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time on planet Earth, Satoshi Nakamoto gave us that.
Yeah.
Verified by math.
That's the nice thing about being in New Hampshire is we're working on, hopefully trying to work on building networks and systems outside the government, like money systems, barter systems, all sorts of things, so that when things break down, and they inevitably will, we're all practiced at trading gold and silver. We're all practiced at trading barter for goods and services, or practicing using cryptocurrency, because cryptocurrency is going to convey value across the world.
And does so accurately.
Yeah. And it's truly marvelous that cryptocurrency, by its nature, is the proof of anarchist philosophy, specifically, as you put it, rules without rulers.
Right.
Like, we don't all answer to Satoshi Nakamoto.
Right, yeah, he's not our god.
Like, for all I know, and it's kind of my going theory, probably dead. I don't know. But even if Satoshi Nakamoto comes back and says, nope, these are the new rules, okay, that's nice. We're not going to follow them.
Right, yeah.
We're already following these rules because these rules work for us.
Or he gets a statist bug up his ass. He's like, Satoshi for president.
Yeah,
right?
that would be really bad.
Like, no, Satoshi, sorry, it's like when they talk about these artists, they're like, oh, he died so young, he had so much more to give. How do you know?
Right.
How do you know he wasn't done? That was it. That was all he had to give before he died. How do you know that he wouldn't have like tried to give more, but it would have been horrible, and everybody would have ridiculed him and like been like, why didn't he make good stuff like he did when he was younger before he, supposedly died?
That is what tends to happen with artists.
How do you know he's not going to be playing a Super Bowl halftime show with like Janet Jackson or something? You know what I mean? Like hashing out some oldies that only the old fuddy-duddies remember.
Yeah,
we don't know. So,
but yeah, the fact that here's this emergent system where we all follow the same rules, not because we will be forced to, not because we will be put in a cage for not doing so, but because we choose to. It is in our benefit. We are paid by each other to follow the same set of rules. And it really is that simple. And if you want to know, well, how are you going to arrange every other complicated thing? Who will build the roads? Like that. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to find whatever set of rules we can best agree to.
So, dear governments around the planet, you can arrest Ian Freeman, you can arrest Aria DiMezzo, you can, raid...
Try and shut down the show.
Yeah, you can raid this studio, another couple of times, whatever it is. It's not going to matter. The people are not the thing that you are rallying against. You're rallying against a technology that's unstoppable.
Yeah.
And by persecuting people who are adopting this technology, you are revealing yourself as the evil ones in this particular equation.
Yeah. And the other side of this equation is the information.
Yeah.
So right now, I mean, who listens to CNN? Who listens to Fox? No one listens to mainstream media. Their viewership numbers are in the absolute toilet.
Well,
but
it's all the old people.
The only ones that listen to them at all are those that have done so for the last 40 years.
Yeah, if you're over like 65 or whatever, you're probably CNN, NBC, Fox News, right? You're watching one of those three. Maybe some ABC in there, right?
If you're even bothering to do that. Whereas the vast majority of people are listening to independent sources and going out and seeking their own information.
God, I hope so. Because like when we talked last week a little bit, we just touched on like I still watch the NFL football, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I do, if I don't catch it once the game's over, which is mostly what I do, and then I get to see it commercial free. But if I watch the game while it's being presented live, I am subject to commercials. Now, I have been off of the commercial IV, the heroin that is, commercials that, like, when I go home, I don't turn the TV on just to have it on where it's like playing whatever and playing commercials and playing whatever show. No. I'm very on purpose about what I watch. I'm very selective and on purpose. Like, no,
intentional.
Intentional, yes, thank you. I like to say on purpose because that, I don't know, I think it
purposeful.
It resonates with sort of the common man, if you will.
Some people like to have their television on to drown out the noise of their own mind, it seems.
Right. Well, and so what happens if you turn your television off, or as the oldest of the memes say, kill your television, right? Because it is programming. I'm always sort of taken aback by how I feel after I'm advertised to during an NFL game, after having not been advertised
Does it make you feel dirty?
in the rest of my... No, I'm just like, man, no wonder nobody can see this. They haven't been away from it long enough. It's a thing.
Yeah, they're still in the system. They're still partaking in its pernicious nectar.
Right.
Yeah, you're talking to fish about water, and they have no idea what you're saying.
Right, and they're like, what? But no, we must swim upstream.
Yeah. No, it was in
It's
order
what
to...
we do.
Yes.
Like, in order to discover that I had a problem with gluten, what did I have to do? Well, I had to cut it out for a while and then see how I felt, adding it back in. Because it was just part of my world. Of course I eat gluten. Everyone eats gluten. It's in sandwiches, it's in burritos, it's in everything.
I thought you had to fight other gluten-esque people with, like, swords so you could be the Gluten-lander.
The glutenoids.
The Gluten-lander.
That'd be funny.
It's like Highlander, but with gluten. Or gluten-free, I guess.
It's a gluten battle.
But yeah, and with a lot of things like lactose intolerance or whatever, the way that you discover that these are poisonous to you is by cutting them out and then seeing how you feel when you add them back in. And the same is true of mental poisons.
Yeah.
Cut these things out of your life just for a while and then see how they make you feel. And I do mean feel, because there is a wisdom in the body that it reacts poorly when it is being attacked. It doesn't make you feel good when you're exposed to these things that have a slow drip, drip, drip toxicity to you. But you won't notice if that's your everyday.
So the NBC Boston people put out the two new episodes, one about the Crypto 6, episode 12, and the other one episode 13 focuses a bit more on the Free State Project. You can find that over at NBCBoston.com. I've posted a link to that on all of our social media here tonight if you want to check it out. But I want to talk about this from BitcoinMagazine.com. Bitcoin mixing service Samurai Wallet founders arrested, charged with, a drum roll please, money laundering.
Oh. Really? Why are they charged with money laundering?
Is it because they laundered money?
Whose laundry are they? Who's money laundering? Whose money are they really laundering, though?
The U.S. DOJ also seized Samurai's web servers and domain and served seizure warrants for Samurai's mobile app on the Google Play Store.
Wow.
So, just so everybody understands, this is, or at least was, a centralized service. A wallet provider called Samurai that had built into its wallet what is known as crypto mixers.
Yeah, a coin mixing service. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's because they're centralized, the Department of Justice was able to seize their web servers, their internet domain, and serve some warrants to remove their mobile app from the Google Play Store, apparently.
That is absolutely insane.
In a significant development, Keon Rodriguez and William Longren Hill, founders and CEO of the privacy-focused Bitcoin wallet and mixer, Samurai Wallet, have been arrested and charged with money laundering and operating an unlicensed money transmitting business.
Oh, wow. The same sort of charges that they brought up on Ian money laundering and unlicensed money transfer.
So what you're saying is you didn't give me a cut.
That is
I
what
was
they're saying.
supposed to get a cut of this. I was supposed to get approval and veto power over what you were doing when what you were doing was software? Oh, which we have in a court of law determined was speech already.
Well, the court of law has yet to recognize cryptocurrency as speech.
Which is pretty amazing given the fact that it's software.
And it's zeros and ones. And they've ruled that software is speech, but they haven't ruled that cryptocurrency is speech.
Well, people like to look at Bitcoin as money, and so they want to treat it as though it's money and get their cut.
They like to have it both ways, you see. If they looked at it as money, then they couldn't tax it the way that they do. So, like, when you go to, Mexico or Europe or whatever, you have to pay that guy to get whatever the local currency is. But then you don't have to calculate, this is trending upward or downward against the US dollar and pay capital gains tax on every purchase that you make. No, it's nothing like that, because they realize how commerce would grind to a halt if they had to calculate every single cent that turned into a peso. So they don't treat currency like that. They don't treat money like that, except for our money, except for the money of the people.
Yeah. These charges stem from allegations that Rodriguez and Hill, through their company, Samurai Wallet, facilitated over $2 billion in unlawful transactions and allegedly laundered more than $100 million in criminal proceeds. This activity primarily involved transactions from illegal dark web markets, as well as schemes to defraud decentralized finance protocols, the DOJ stated. The defendants are accused by the DOJ of developing, marketing, and operating a Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mixer that provided a platform for criminals to engage in large-scale money laundering. If that were true, the government would never even try and shut them down. Government would be their biggest subscriber, their biggest user, biggest advocate of their services, because we all know government is the biggest criminals.
Yeah. Quick question. Guess what the absolute hands down number one source of money laundering? Oh, the dollar.
the
dollar,
yes.
like without a question.
Yes, no question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you're doing practically all of the money laundering on the face of the earth.
Yep.
Because you produced this tool, and then people used that tool to launder money.
Yeah.
Let me guess.
So when are we putting Jerome Powell in jail? When does Janet Yellen get her court?
How about never? They're never going to get their day in court because they're the elite. The elite get a pass in this world for some reason.
Well, and I hate to say this, but in this case, that's the just thing to do. Like, sure, they're producing a tool that is then being misused, but that isn't the same as committing the misuse.
Right.
$2 billion in transactions with an unlicensed money transmitter means $2 billion flowed without any oversight from whomever to wherever. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to do.
It's all about freedom, ladies and gentlemen.
You mean like they had like security in their person and effects, and like you couldn't just take their papers or documents, or it's almost like you were following the Bill of Rights for a second. Oh man, we got to shut that down.
Because of the company's disregard for regulation. I don't know what that means. Did Samurai Wallet ever go, you know what, we're just disregarding all regulation?
Well,
like I don't remember that press release.
Yeah, I don't remember that press release either. But you have to remember, Captain, these people like regulation. They like control. They like to make sure everyone is dotting the T's and not dotting the T's. I'm a little high.
Dotting the I's, crossing the T's.
Dotting the I's, crossing the T's, all that jazz, just so they can get their cuts, just so they can see how money is flowing through the world. No, we can't have anyone outside our systems. We got to be one and only true system on the face of the earth.
So because of the company's disregard for regulation, it is alleged that Samurai Wallet laundered more than $100 million in criminal proceeds, stated IRS CI Special Agent in Charge Thomas Fattorusso. Fattorusso.
Oh, wow.
These
things don't write themselves, apparently. Do they?
It's not written by me. I can only read the words in front of me.
Fattorusso.
Special agents with IRS-CI New York and IRS-CI LA's cyber units. They have cyber units.
They do.
They don't have real units. They have to get cyber ones. They worked with our federal and international law enforcement partners to not only arrest the founders and CEO, but also seize their domain. Samurai Wallet is now closed for business. See, I think what they should do here, and I've titled tonight's show Dow Now, Brown Cow, because I think they should take a page out of Shapeshift and a page out of Odyssey as far as what they did when they were attacked by the bureaucrats, which is turn this thing into a decentralized autonomous organization.
Oh, did Odyssey actually become a DAO?
That's what my Twitter feed seems to indicate.
Oh, interesting.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it talks about how, hey, we're going to decentralize and make this thing like I mean, they're still all about fighting the fight, but it seems to me that is the direction that they're going. You can verify for yourselves, of course. But either way, I think becoming a DAO for Samurai is pertinent, and I also think they should rename it to Ninja.
Oh, interesting.
Because like samurais are like, they're sort of like decorated warriors. You can spot them a mile away, right?
And they are absolutely instruments of the government.
Yes. Whereas ninjas were sort of like the mysterious dark fighters that like would come and go and like disappear, and like they were sort of ghost-like, right? And I think that they should samurai should become a DAO and then rename the DAO Ninja.
That'd be cool.
It's my opinion.
With maybe a DJA, because, it's Samurai. You got to have some way of misspelling it so that people can easily search it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
and they do spell it not the traditional way. Samurai, the wallet, is spelled Samourai. Right, so they throw an extra letter in there. Your spell check will be like, did you mean samurai? And spell it the right way, and you got to be like, nope.
Yeah, and this is just part of a growing trend. I know that Phoenix Wallet, one of the big providers of Lightning Network services, have also left the United States. Anyone out there with a Phoenix Wallet, you better get those Satoshis back on chain, because they will no longer serve the U.S., because the U.S. is cracking down left and right.
That's so scary.
So this whole geographical area is about to be left in the dust by the rest of the world with this new technology. And yeah, you're absolutely right to advise that they turn this into a decentralized autonomous organization, because frankly, those are the ones that are going to succeed moving forward, because there's no center to destroy. There's no snake. There's no head to cut off of the snake.
603-283-6160 if you'd like to comment on the Samurai Wallet CEO and founders being arrested. We've got more to talk about this particular subject, plus more is on the way about liberty and the pursuits of New Hampshire on Free Talk Live. Stay tuned. Hour number 3 is next.
I just got off the phone with New York. We are the #1 network in the world. And it is an honor to stand before you at such an exciting time. We're stretching boundaries that will irreparably alter people's perception of what they are willing to watch. And our next season will offer tantalizing programming that plays seamlessly into the desire of our viewers. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you just a taste of what ODS has to offer.
You know the rules. Grow a pumpkin or go home. Here's the twist. Only one of you has the real pumpkin seeds.
Are you a pumpkin or not?
You call yourselves pumpkin growers?
I know I didn't get the pumpkin seeds. I dug in there. They're bean sprouts.
Starting a pumpkin alliance. Anyone grows a pumpkin, we split the money.
Get out of my patch!
This is the Onion News Network.
Eleutheromania, the insatiable desire for freedom. It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Pro-Palestinian protests have continued across US campuses. Students are saying they don't want their colleges to support Israel business, given action in Gaza. In New York, students have defied official requests for them to leave the Columbia University campus. Demonstrators have camped on college grounds for more than a week. Sally Patterson reports from Columbia in New York.
Outside Columbia University, protesters chant, "Bring them home." They're demanding the release of hostages still being held in Gaza. And they say what's happening on US campuses across the country is, in their opinion, anti-Semitic. This comes as more and more demonstrations set up at college campuses, demanding that their universities boycott Israel and divest from Israeli companies as the war in Gaza goes on. Sally Patterson, New York.
The first criminal trial against a US president, former leader Donald Trump, is ongoing in New York. He is accused of covering up hush money payments to an adult film star as part of charges of falsifying business records. Week 2 of the trial has centered on former tabloid publisher David Pecker, who says he did a catch-and-kill program to stop bad stories leaking out about Trump, and he advised his team to pay off adult film star Stormy Daniels. At the same time, the US Supreme Court's 9 justices heard arguments on Thursday on the question of former President Trump's immunity. Whatever opinion they form could have an impact on whether his trial goes ahead on election interference.
Trump's lawyers, of course, have argued that he should be immune. That's why this case has come all the way up to the Supreme Court. They say in all the events leading up to January 6th, to the Capitol attack, all the conversations he had, he was acting in an official capacity as president in the White House at the time, and therefore that he shouldn't be tried.
Chinese President Xi Jinping says the US and China should be partners, not rivals. He was speaking at a meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
The two sides did find areas of cooperation, for example, in climate change and having more cultural exchanges, including more students from both countries, and on the issue of fentanyl and its precursors, with the US keen to stop the flow of fentanyl going into the country from China. But Antony Blinken raised some serious concerns about Chinese components funding Russia's war effort in Ukraine. He also said that Chinese overcapacity was not about limiting China's economy, but really making it a fair and even playing field. Chinese President Xi Jinping also made some comments. He said that he hopes that the US can look at China's development in a positive light. He said this was fundamental in seeing the relationship improve and move forward.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. A trial of the world's first ever personalised vaccine against the deadliest form of skin cancer is now underway in the United Kingdom. The mRNA vaccine works by telling the body to hunt down melanoma cells and stop the disease coming back. It's personalised, so its exact makeup is changed for every patient. Oncologist Dr. Jeffrey Weber led earlier clinical trials in the United States.
We're going to generate killer cells that are going to seek out and find the tumor and get rid of it. And if we get to the point where you can literally prevent almost everyone from relapsing, that's a gigantic win.
US President Joe Biden has said he would be happy to debate Donald Trump, his likely rival for the White House. This change of tack comes after months of him refusing to commit to an onstage appearance with Trump. Nick Harper reports from Washington.
Joe Biden spoke to radio host Howard Stern on Friday, during which he was asked about the chances of a Biden-Trump debate.
I don't know if you're going to debate your opponent.
I am somewhere. I don't know when. I'm happy to debate him.
Donald Trump has been spending several months pushing Biden to commit to a formal, televised, on-stage debate, and there's been pressure from television networks, all looking for an agreement from President Biden. Keeping with tradition, 3 presidential debates have been scheduled for September and October, but it's been unclear if they'll go ahead. In 2020, the two men only managed 2 debates. Trump pulled out of the third after testing positive for COVID-19. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
I'm Caroline Malone in Washington, and that was the Week in Review.
Medical experts announced that an Ebola vaccine is at least 50 white people away from being developed. The CIA is now ready to install a female world leader, and a sex toy is discreetly shipped in a plain dildo-shaped box. Rising to the top of the video news summary game through an unstoppable combination of glad-handing and payoffs, this is the Onion Week in Review. Reflecting on his accomplishments and questioning his current abilities, the Lord God Almighty, our Heavenly Father and Blessed Savior, told reporters that he was no longer confident whether he would be able to create the world in only 7 days. He who commanded light to shine from the darkness admitted that the mere thought of producing the entirety of the universe from nothingness, a task he once completed with time to spare, had become surprisingly daunting, and added that creating a small, lifeless moon or asteroid now seemed like a more realistic goal. In this week's science news, psychology comes to a halt as weary researchers say the mind cannot possibly study itself.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
FCC, let's do it live.
Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. If you'd like to join us tonight. It is Free Talk Live. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kick-Ass, joining me,
Riley,
and Peakless Mountaineer.
Free Talk Live is brought to you by Fork Fest, happening June 13th through 16th at Rogers Campground. I'm sorry, Rogers Campground.
Rogers Campground.
Rogers Campground. You got to roll the Rogers Campground.
Do I have to?
No, but like I just do
because that's what we're about here.
I can't do the really
you telling people what they have to do.
Don't tell me what to do, man.
I don't pay you to be the boss of me.
I can't do certain things like the put the 2 fingers in the mouth, either the thumb and the or the 2 finger, and do the really super loud whistle.
I can't do that.
I can't do that. I've never been able to figure that. But I can roll my R's. Right, so I try to do that because I'm making up for my lack of
whistle powers.
Yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I've never seen anyone who can whistle that loudly like that and alter the pitch of the whistle. So it's trade-offs everywhere you go, man.
I'm there. But Free Talk Live, brought to you by Fork Fest, June 13th through the 16th at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, so there's no ticket cost, and no one is in charge. For more information and to connect with other attendees, you can visit the unofficial website, forkfest.party.
Wait, no one's in charge of Forkfest? How will we know what to do?
That's forkfest.party. We'll just have to figure that out when we get there, man.
It sounds like a plan.
Well, it'll be up to us to figure out what to do. And in fact, I suggest if you would like to see an event at Forkfest, be the event you would like to see. Put it together. If you think it's a good idea, if you think it's good enough that you'd want to go to it, then it should be good enough for you to want to put it on and possibly participate in one of Earth's freest markets, which occurs at Forkfest and Porkfest. So,
free markets? Why, that's not KYC compliant.
We could have a free market where
It's
no
not KFC
one has
compliant
identified
either.
themselves.
You don't get mashed potatoes or biscuits or anything with it. It's you don't get a choice between extra crispy and original recipe. It's not KFC compliant either. So we were talking about Samurai, and I wanted to mention there's a follow-up article. Samurai did nothing wrong. Self-custodial tools are not money transmitters. This is a reaction to the indictment charge against the Samurai developers a couple of days ago, and the patently absurd distortions of reality, prior regulatory clarification, and the functionality of the software to categorize them as a money transmission business. So we know that the announcement was made, Justice Department, that Keon Rodriguez and William Hill had been arrested and charged with operating Samurai Wallet, quote, an unlicensed money transmitting business, unquote, that executed, quote, unlawful transactions, unquote.
We've also decided to put people in jail for building walls that are not transparent. Because if you're doing nothing wrong, you have nothing to hide.
So as an editorial, this says FCC, the Justice Department, full stop. Except FCC isn't what they wrote. I only saying FCC because I can't say the word they wrote on radio.
Oh, so someone's censoring your speech, Captain.
Yes, the FCC is. And that's why I used another cuss word.
Indeed.
So he says, F the Justice Department, full stop. At no point did Samurai custody user funds, did it have control over user funds, and especially did not execute any transactions on behalf of the user. It is a completely self-custodial wallet in every way. They, from day one, were completely uncompromising in that with every feature they have ever implemented. They are now being charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering with a maximum sentence of 20 years.
This is
and one count of conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business with a maximum sentence of 5 years. This is literally insane.
So this is exactly the same as charging Sears for selling you a wallet because you bought drugs with the money that you put in that wallet. Like, literally, that is what this is. They gave you...
It's just insanity.
They gave you a wallet.
Yeah.
Now, that wallet was a privacy wallet. Sure. Great. But it didn't... They did none of these things. They didn't launder money. They didn't move money. They didn't have this money. Ever. They just gave you the ability to have your own money.
Let's look at some of the language used in the press release for these arrests. Samurai unlawfully combined multiple unique features to execute anonymous financial transactions valued at over $2 billion for its customers.
Who cares?
Well, I care, actually. That's a good thing. In New Hampshire, we have a constitutionally protected right to privacy.
So...
The author here says, what the FCC does that even mean? Unlawfully combined multiple unique features? ? They wrote source code that juggles ones and zeros around and puts them together in a certain arrangement? They wrote a computer program that just creates pieces of data on users' own devices, their own property, and signs it with a cryptographic key before sending it off to the internet for other people's computers to voluntarily download and look at it, maybe forward some ones and zeros to another person's computer. That is a First Amendment protected right, full stop.
Yeah.
According to the author. Writing and releasing source code is free speech. The entire absurd argument of unlawfully combining unique features is essentially boiling down to you spoke wrong speak. And that is not legal. They are literally implicitly stating that certain types of speech or combinations of speech are unlawful, and that is insane.
In a society of vocal people, those who curtail your speech are the ones who are the most powerful.
Yeah. I was referencing earlier the Fourth Amendment, and part of that is the right of the people to be secure in their papers. Why would they put that in there? Oh, because papers are where you keep your information. You have, in theory, a right to be secure in your information.
Like deeds, birth certificates, or any sort of certificates you may have.
Any information, any kind of paper, they have no right to seize it. They have no right to surveil it unless they at least go through their what's called due process by getting a judge to sign off on a warrant. And they don't like doing that.
Yeah. Samurai does not create addresses for users. The user's own wallets do, full stop. Samurai's servers have no part in generating addresses for users. That is a factually incorrect statement. As well, the framing of supervises and facilitates transactions is very intentionally framing. They ultimately have no control over the transaction construction process other than being a passive message passer. They're just taking, it's like dropping a letter in the mailbox and it being passed off to the mailman to drop in your mailbox. That's it. They're just passing information, passing data. The internet does that all day and all night. Nobody's going after Microsoft. Nobody's going after, Intel. Nobody's going after all the large network companies that own all this infrastructure.
Yeah. No one goes after any of the cell phone companies because of the conversations that go on cell phones.
Right.
No one goes after the Postal Service for being the largest transmitter of drugs on the planet.
Of course not. They're the paid drug cartel for the government. They're the special elite class.
At no step in the process do they gain control over the transaction users construct. The ultimate destination of the transactions, which are to themselves, are entirely decided by users. The authorization, of the transaction is approved solely and exclusively by the users themselves. So not involving Samurai in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. So you allowed other people to transmit value between each other.
Yes.
Without our permission and without giving us a slice of what they were transmitting. How dare you?
The press release goes on further to specifically single out Whirlpool and Ricochet as the two features in question. Ricochet, first of all, being classified, or at least implied to be, a form of money laundering or some kind of illegal transaction structure, is insane. Ricochet is literally just a series of transactions in a chain, sending money to yourself.
You're interfering with our illegal spying.
How dare you?
Literally every single wallet in existence for Bitcoin is capable of creating a chain of self-spends like this. Every single one of them. You just keep sending your own Bitcoin to a new address in the wallet over and over. This is money laundering? This is what's illegal? He questions. Is spending my money to myself, making no transaction to any external entity or interacting with any other party illegal? They reiterate their go FCC yourself portion.
Well, you put that $20 from your topmost drawer into your wallet, and then you put it from your wallet into the topmost drawer of your bedstand, and then you put it back in a different wallet. That is clearly money laundering.
How dare you?
He continues to ask, this is absolutely patently insane. So are all wallet providers facilitating money laundering
like
then?
Bitcoin.com or Coinomi or...
Is this the insane road that they're going to try and walk down, setting precedent with this case?
I sure hope not, because it's really bad if they do.
You know, if they would apply the same rules to everybody, that'd be fine with me. You'd have to shut down Coinbase. You might not make friends with BlackRock if you did that.
They also, in the indictment, claim Samurai, as a money-transmitting business, had an obligation to apply KYC and AML regulations on their users. They are not a money-transmitting business, full stop. Again, he loves using full stop at this. At no point does Samurai take custody or have control over the capability to transact themselves unilaterally with users' funds. To claim that they are money transmitting business and that they have obligation to collect and enforce KYC and AML regulations is to argue that every self-custodial wallet and service in the entire ecosystem falls under the auspices of money transmission regulations.
I'd also like to point out that it's impossible for them to do that. Like, they have no control of what people do with this software. They simply don't. Like, even if they, somehow flipped a switch, became pure evil, and wanted to do everything that the government wanted them to do as far as spying on everyone on Earth, they simply couldn't. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
So to say you had an obligation to do this thing that was impossible, it's pretty absurd.
The end of the article says, if you haven't already grown up, now would be a good time to do so. The serious issues like this we are going to deal with moving forward into this cycle are infinitely more important than stupid Twitter drama. So that was, who's this written by? It's written by Shinobi over at bitcoinmagazine.com. I'll post a link to the article on our socials.
Yeah, good guy, that one. And I'd also like to point out, it's part of the case law now that if you went to a Know Your Customer service, you intentionally gave up your right to privacy.
That's really sad.
That's part of case law now.
Wow, that's really sad. That's really bad, too, because they're taking away our right to privacy by not allowing us to have the money we want.
Well, and this from torrentfreak.com, U.S. Know Your Customer proposal will put an end to anonymous cloud users.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Oh, and just a quick note for anyone who wants to look that one up. It's the Grotowski case in Fifth Circuit. But yeah, so on the one hand, you have to use Know Your Customer. On the other hand, if you do, you're just willingly giving up your right to privacy.
Late January, the U.S. Department of Commerce published a notice of proposed rulemaking for establishing new requirements for infrastructure as a service, IaaS, sorry. The proposal boils down to a Know Your Customer regime for companies operating cloud services with the goal of countering the activities of foreign malicious actors. Yet, despite an overseas focus, Americans won't be able to avoid the proposal's requirements, which covers CDNs, virtual private servers, proxies, and domain name resolution services, among others. Now, what does that mean to the layman? Well, it's long been the case that access to certain services, whether on or offline, will only be granted when customers prove their identity.
That's
really by the way, CDN is Content Delivery Network.
Yes, thank you. Often linked to financial products, but in many cases, basic money and goods transactions carried out online. Handing over a name, address, date of birth, and similar details can increase confidence that the deal will more than likely go according to plan. In some cases, especially when buying restricted products, proving identity can be a condition of sale. I think, like, you go to a car dealership and buy a car, you got to, show, some ID, that kind of stuff. You want to get a bank loan. You want to get a loan to buy a car, buy a house, whatever they get all up in your business.
Mm-hmm.
No, all up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are looking at, they want it's like you're being raided by the FBI. They want all of your bank account information. They're going to go look at your transaction history. They're looking at all of your transactions throughout your entire financial life that have been on record.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks.
It sounds like it does suck. Like, how, oh my God. It's like, how can these people think to get away with this? I mean, do they think they own the money supply? It sure sounds like they do.
Well, yeah, and then, the mortgage companies or the agents that you work with when you're trying to get a loan, they're like, well, the law says we have to. I'm just doing my job.
As far as what do they think? I mean, they think that whatever they say goes, period, full stop. They also think that since they put in so much work to create the internet, they get to say absolutely how it gets developed.
Yet for many years, companies operating in the online space have been happy to do business with customers without knowing very much about them at all.
That's how money works.
I know. Like
That's how money's supposed to work.
That is literally the whole point. Like, if I know you, if you're in my Dunbar number of people, then I can keep track of how many favors I do for you. If you're not in my Dunbar number, then I have to have something else to keep track so that I don't get taken advantage of. That's why we have money.
Well, and I think of...
like, a gold coin proves that someone got some service or good that was worth handing over this thing that is hard to get.
I think of... when I think of the freest markets that exist outside of something like, getting on the Onion network and finding some of these, hidden sites using Tor and all that kind of stuff. I think of flea markets. I think of garage sales, yard sales, this type of thing. Now, what happens? You drive through a neighborhood and you notice that, in the driveway, on the lawn, some family has a bunch of stuff put out on tables in the lawn, etc., and so on. They got some kind of a sign that says yard sale, rummage sale, that kind of thing. And you go, oh, look, some people are selling some stuff. You've never met these people before. You walk onto their property. You look around at the stuff they have. You find something you want. Maybe it's got a price on it. Maybe you got to haggle, whatever it is, right? You do that. And then you hand over some cash and walk away with the good.
Sounds like money laundering to me.
Right?
Oh, yeah. So much money laundering right there.
The article continues, in some cases where companies understand that a lack of friction is valuable to the customer, an email address has long been considered sufficient. If the credit or payment card eventually used to pay for the product has enough credit and isn't stolen, there seems to be little to be concerned about. For many governments, however, any level of anonymity has the capacity to cause concern. And if that means unmasking everyone to identify a few bad actors, so be it.
I thought they wanted us to wear masks.
Sorry, what?
I thought they wanted us to wear masks. No, they want to unmask everybody.
Well, no, they want us to wear masks, but they want us to be unmasked when it comes to anything to do with money.
Oh, I see. They don't want
to track every penny that you spend.
They don't want to know that if Captain and I are trading money for marijuana or something.
They want to arrest me if I have a rummage sale.
It must be so hard for an authoritarian. On the one hand, they want to be able to identify everyone uniquely. On the other hand, they don't want you to have unique identifiers like a face. It's got to be a rough life.
Government
Social Security
is an insipid organization.
Don't worry, you'll all get a stamp before too long.
As long as your Social Security number is on the front of your mask.
What does
so
that
we can identify.
What does that even mean anyway? Social Security. Does that mean if I go out and get drunk and make an ass of myself in front of a bunch of people in a social situation that they're going to bail me out?
No, not at all.
Because to me, that sounds like Social Security.
Only when you're 65.
Or older. But no, they don't even do that. They don't even do that.
Well, like most things the government does, it does the exact opposite of what it claims.
So it's socialist insecurity.
Yes.
When you're claiming it.
Yeah. So it is antisocial and it creates insecurity. So the fact of the matter is that instead of having people be responsible for themselves and then have the choice of either putting away money for retirement or being nice enough to their kids that their kids will then support them when they can no longer work, instead you have the government being the parental figure for everyone, and that keeps us in a situation where we don't have to be nice to each other.
Government welfare is slavery. This so-called security system is not secure at all. It's not financial security. It's not financial security. It's not going to give you any financial security. It's going to incentivize poverty.
Mm-hmm. And they keep, putting people in fear by saying that the Social Security network, it might not be there for you. So they're continuously making people insecure about their own retirement.
Of course they are. The more they can incentivize you to be poor, the better they can control you in the name of...
And afraid.
We're going to give you crumbs. We're going to give you a living wage. We're going to give you a basic income. Don't you worry.
If this proposal is adopted, it will establish a new set of requirements for infrastructure as a service provider, often known as cloud infrastructure providers, to deny access to foreign adversaries. The premise is relatively simple. By having a more rigorous sign-up procedure for platforms such as Amazon AWS, for example, that's Amazon Web Servers, the risk of malicious actors using U.S. cloud services to attack critical infrastructure or undermine national security can be reduced, the Bureau of Industry and Security noted in its announcement late January. 603-283-6160. Are you afraid of foreign actors using Amazon Web Services? Give us a call. It's Free Talk Live. The final half hour still to come.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone with the Week in Review. Pro-Palestinian protests have continued across US campuses. Students are saying they don't want their colleges to support Israel business, given action in Gaza. In New York, students have defied official requests for them to leave the Columbia University campus. Demonstrators have camped on college grounds for more than a week. Sally Patterson reports from Columbia in New York.
Outside Columbia University, protesters chant, "Bring them home." They're demanding the release of hostages still being held in Gaza. And they say what's happening on US campuses across the country is, in their opinion, anti-Semitic. This comes as more and more demonstrations set up at college campuses, demanding that their universities boycott Israel and divest from Israeli companies as the war in Gaza goes on. Sally Patterson, New York.
The first criminal trial against a US president, former leader Donald Trump, is ongoing in New York. He is accused of covering up hush money payments to an adult film star as part of charges of falsifying business records. Week 2 of the trial has centred on former tabloid publisher David Pecker, who says he did a catch-and-kill program to stop bad stories leaking out about Trump, and he advised his team to pay off adult film star Stormy Daniels. At the same time, the US Supreme Court's 9 justices heard arguments on Thursday on the question of former President Trump's immunity. Whatever opinion they form could have an impact on whether his trial goes ahead on election interference. Chinese President Xi Jinping says the US and China should be partners, not rivals. He was speaking at a meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
The two sides did find areas of cooperation, for example, in climate change and having more cultural exchanges, including more students from both countries, and on the issue of fentanyl and its precursors, with the US keen to stop the flow of fentanyl going into the country from China. But Antony Blinken raised some serious concerns about Chinese components funding Russia's war effort in Ukraine. He also said that Chinese overcapacity was not about limiting China's economy, but really making it a fair and even playing field. Chinese President Xi Jinping also made some comments. He said that he hopes that the US can look at China's development in a positive light. He said this was fundamental in seeing the relationship improve and move forward.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Yes, welcome back. It is Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160. There's probably still time if you want to call. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me.
Riley.
And Peakless Mountaineer.
Without further ado, let's go to, I believe we have Footloose calling. Footloose, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, man, how you doing?
Just plugging away.
Yeah, what's going on in the world of Footloose that's got you calling Free Talk Live?
So, you guys popped up in my feed. I don't know why you haven't popped up in forever. This is the first time in months.
Shadow banning.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah, I'm shadow banned too. But so it popped up and I was listening and I'm like, wait a second, it's live. I can call. I got a little bit of a situation going on here.
All right, what's up?
So, were you at Ian's sentencing?
I was.
Yep.
I was there the first day,
All
but
right,
they didn't do the
gentlemen-
sentencing. So.
Oh right, yeah, they
I think
they pulled the
that's-
bait and switch.
Yeah, the bait and switch day. But everybody was there. There was, a ton of people there. And Jason Gerhard, Representative Gerhard, and I got arrested in the lobby.
Oh, for filming, yes.
Correct.
Right, yeah, you guys went there with some cameras to sort of challenge the ruling that you cannot film in a federal facility, right?
Thank you for your service on that.
It was because I researched all the rules and everything, and they're trying to apply a local rule, 83.8, which governs courtroom procedure, civil and criminal procedure, right? That would be inside the courtroom, and they're applying it outside the courtroom because there's a poster in the lobby that says we're allowed to record. So we challenged it. Got arrested, charged with disobeying, and then at our arraignments, we were recording again, and both of us again got arrested. This time we were charged with disorderly. Then we had our trial scheduled. I'm trying to give you guys the clip notes.
Yeah.
We had our trials. We just had our trials. I was there the day before to document the poster in the lobby to see if it was still there. I come to my trial. They give me another disorderly ticket for the day before when I came to document the lobby that there was a poster there saying we could record.
Wow.
And
that's ridiculous.
Long story short, Mr. Gerhard went first. He was found guilty. I was found guilty. And at one point during my trial, I got the judge to let me get my phone because, they don't let you bring your phone, even if you're representing, even though there's a rule that says you're allowed to bring your electronics.
Yeah.
That's how I got the judge to let me bring my phone upstairs.
Okay.
And as you know, if you were following my whole 4-stage plan, the plan was to get my phone in the courtroom and start recording.
Right.
So I told the judge that I can't promise that at some point I won't start recording. She said, well, you can't. But I said, okay, whatever. I'm just telling you. And so she let me get the phone. I bring it up. I get found guilty. And I was like, you know what? I'm done with this crap. I'm walking out of here. In the middle, at the end, she just said guilty, but she was still doing some of the sentencing stuff and whatever. I grab my phone, hit video, start recording, and start cussing out the judge and the prosecutor. And I've been good. I've been able to not get myself tanked by saying what I said.
Yeah.
But I start recording, and then the judge is like, hold him in contempt. I get surrounded by U.S. Marshals and court security.
Oh, my God.
And then the witness in the case who has been arresting us this whole time, the Department of Homeland Security officer Michael Plant, he comes over and grabs my phone. And we start hand wrestling for the phone, and I get to shut it off, and he grabs it with both hands, rips it out of my hand, right?
Yep.
So then he says, they're like, get out of the building. I said, give me my phone. He said, I'll give it to you outside. I get outside.
He's not going to
He doesn't give me my phone.
Right.
I run to my car, get my recording device. He comes out and he says, the judge confiscated your phone.
wow.
So
That's
I called,
absolutely
so
crazy.
I was like, I want a receipt. They said you can get a receipt from the clerk. I called the clerk the next day. Nothing. No contempt charge. Judge has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
So I go to the Norris Cotton building where the DHS guys are operating out of here in Manchester.
Yep.
And I have all this on video. It's all on my channel. And I asked them, what's going on? I want some sort of documentation. He says, I took your phone. And then
liar.
Nothing. They go inside. They run away.
Yeah.
I go back again like a couple days later, and I talk to just the commander himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him for a FOIA. I'm like, I want to do a FOIA request. I want documentation of this thing.
Sure.
And he's just like, oh, no, there's nothing. The guy's not here. Oh, I can't give you anything. But they did say they're trying to get a warrant for my phone. So I got mailed today. I filed a motion for reconsideration, and the prosecution objected. And in the last paragraph, they say that something about I pressed the issue and I could have been charged with contempt. And then he goes on to say, and then law enforcement, because I asked for a mistrial for the witness in the case, jumping up and then grabbing my phone and stealing my phone
right.
while the trial is still ongoing.
Right.
And so he claims that they got a warrant from another judge to search my phone. Jesus. And so I'm planning that they're either going to put out an arrest warrant and pick me up, or they're going to subpoena me and I'm going to show up. And then either way, they're going to hold me in contempt until I open the phone, which means I'm going to go to jail, and then I'm going to fight it from court and all that.
Right.
And here's another thing I need to mention before I forget.
Okay.
So in the discovery, the video that they have is the Free Keene video. And
Oh, wow.
the prosecutor, I'm talking to the prosecutor, and I'm like, he goes, oh, yeah, that's from your organization. And I go, what are you talking about? My organization. I'm like, I have nothing to do with Free Keene.
Hey,
Like,
are you my boss? Like, can I get a raise, bro? I mean, can I get paid at all? Really? Like,
it's just crazy how they are now. So apparently they thought I was associated with you guys in some way, and now they're targeting me because of that.
that's so sad. Before we go on, how can our listeners find you and what you're up to and your channel, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so it's Absolute Defiance on all different socials. It would be Defiant Till I Die, at Defiant Till I Die on Twitter and Instagram, Absolute Defiance on Facebook, and the YouTube is where I give all like the updates and stuff.
Yeah, because you do the videos and all that kind of stuff. All right.
Yeah.
So, where's your phone now? Do you know?
They said it's safe. We have it. It's safe.
It's safe. Okay.
Yeah, gotta love how they steal from you and then get a warrant to steal from you.
Well, and what Footloose here is going through is what I like to call the monkey dance, right? This is where the bureaucracy makes you jump through a bunch of hoops.
Yeah, the process is the punishment.
Right. They know that they took his phone.
Yeah.
They know that it's not right to take a man's phone. They know that they took it, but they're going to hold on to it until he jumps through enough hoops and probably pays a couple of dollars for the privilege of getting his phone back, is my guess.
Oh, you know me, though. I don't comply.
I love it.
Agreed.
Well, they definitely know that it won't be seen as right by other people.
Right.
Now, they in their hearts probably believe that authoritarianism is good. So I wouldn't say that they know it's wrong.
Which makes them
They
ugly.
just know they're not supposed to do it.
Which makes them the ugliest people.
Well, here's another thing.
Truly.
And this information recently got sent to Ian because it would affect his case, too.
Okay.
Because the first element of the charge is that it happened on federal property.
Right.
And there is no federal property in the state of New Hampshire because the act of cession, right, becoming part of the federal government, and then, of course, we have the secession movement.
Right.
Well, if there was never a cession, which there never was in New Hampshire, there could never be a secession. So the law on the books since 1883 is RSA 123.1, and that requires the federal government to acquire property from the state of New Hampshire. They have to file an accurate plan of the property that they're going to acquire from us, then with the Secretary of State by a sworn officer, and then they in current jurisdiction. Well, I went to the State House, talked to the Secretary of State. That video is up there on my channel, and I got a gold seal certificate stating that the federal government has complied with RSA 123.1.
Oh, wow,
that's
brilliant.
Prosecutor is trying to say it's irrelevant. During my trial, at one point, he said, those are just words on paper.
Oh, my God. Yeah, well, so is the Constitution, and so is
the whole source of their theoretical power.
I burst out laughing.
Yeah, I bet you did. All right, so what's going to happen next? Do you know?
So next, so it's interesting because Gerhard, he got his court date for the second disorderly conduct. I have not got a court date for that or the third disorderly conduct in my case.
Okay.
I'm assuming they're going to give me a court date for all of my things at once to kind of consolidate. And so, like I said, there's either an active warrant for my arrest or they're going to send me a subpoena, and I'll go, and they will say, open the phone, and I'm going to say, F off.
Yep.
And then I'll go to jail, and I will fight it from there. I'll file a petition for writ of habeas corpus and go down that road.
Will you be sure, like we're live on Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, 7 to 10 p.m. Will you give us a call when the next thing occurs and keep us updated as this thing goes?
I'll try. Yeah. If you don't hear from me, and it's like if you check my channel, I'm going to at least try to do something at least once a week, once every 2 weeks if you don't see anything, because I don't post a lot. I don't, I focus on one thing until I get it done. And, if I'm gone, I'm gone, and nobody.
So if your channel goes silent, that's the canary in the coal mine that you've been picked up.
Yeah.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Footloose calling. Check out his Absolute Defiance channel. Thank you for the call, man. We appreciate you. Keep us updated when you can. Great activist.
Yeah.
I really enjoy his activism.
He does entertaining activism, that's for sure.
He certainly does.
Yeah, he gets kind of a special pass because they damaged his brain in the process of one of these things, so they kind of have to put up with antics to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Which is, sad but funny.
Yeah, if you want both somebody doing something, right, engaging with the evil, the behemoth, the government, and standing up for himself and others, check out his channel, Absolute Defiance. Peakless, you wanted to talk about which one? Are we talking about the bank?
The bank.
All right. From the Criminal News Network, I have the article headline that says, FDIC says Republic First Bank is closed by Pennsylvania regulators.
It begins again.
So I remember was it a year ago?
Yeah, it was about a year ago. A little over a year ago.
When we had a couple of banks sort of go under.
Yep.
And get acquired by other banks. What's going on here?
Well, basically, it's the exact same thing. So there was this set of collapses, which to my eye very much appear to be controlled collapses because they specifically targeted all of the banks that had anything to do with cryptocurrency. But the fact of the matter is that the entire financial system is not only morally bankrupt, but the other kind of bankrupt too. So what they did, they passed this bank term funding program that nobody has talked about, which was basically it was like a scaled back QE or bailout, right? So here was the problem. They printed $1 bajillion, which makes inflation happen. Then they had to hike all the rates in order to make people spend less money, make everyone poor, so that inflation would theoretically go down. Problem was, when you do that, all of the treasuries that allowed them to print that money in the first place are worth less money, which means a bank run is a severe problem, because instead of being able to sell that for what you got it for, you have to sell it at this tremendous loss. So all of a sudden this, loss that exists but hasn't been made permanent is made permanent. So now you don't have the assets to cover your deposits.
Okay.
So they made the Bank Term Funding Program that said, we, the Federal Reserve, whenever you want, we will, there's a cost for it, but we'll let you redeem all of those treasuries at what you paid for them. Out of the American taxpayer in particular and the world reserve currency's account to pay for that for a year.
Okay.
And now the Bank Term Funding Program is over. So First Republic does not have the BTFP to pull its butt out of the fire. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen of the listening audience, there is some confusion, especially if trying to find this story. Apparently, there are two banks. One is called Republic First Bank. That's the bank we're talking about tonight. The other one is called First Republic Bank. And is that the one that collapsed last year?
Yeah, that was one of the ones that collapsed at the end last year.
That's just so interesting that they're all in reverse of each other.
Yeah.
So First Republic collapsed first, and then Republic First was the first to collapse this year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this is being done deliberately. Like,
if you own a bank, take the word first off of it, you'll be less likely to collapse, apparently.
The thing is, this is being done deliberately. They want to collapse the financial system in order to make it look. They want to make it look like they're going to do something first. They got to make it look like they're helping out the banks. But now that the lending program is over, they're not going to help out the banks. They want to watch them collapse.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is, they're being forced to eat their own at this point. For the first time in a century, they're having to compete with something that is not even close to a fiat currency, and that's cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, when you have something to compare it to, everything collapsing at the same-ish rate doesn't look stable anymore.
Yeah.
So this is really just the first of many, because they put a 1-year Band-Aid on this sucker, and now the Band-Aid's gone, so we get to go back to banks collapsing. And the process of the banks collapsing, it's just consolidation. So like last time, no bank can handle these except the largest bank, which would not be able to absorb anybody else because of how big it is. But because it's an emergency, not only will they be allowed to absorb these banks, but we will pay them millions and millions and millions to do so.
Right, yeah.
Is that how the smaller branch banks are going to collapse too?
Yep,
right into the awaiting arms of the much larger banks.
Right.
Wow.
Yes.
It's really sad.
Yeah, and the coverage of this on usnews.com had a line that I found really interesting. The bank's failure is expected to cost the Deposit Insurance Fund $667 million.
Wow.
And that got me thinking, okay, this Deposit Insurance Fund, how much money do they have? They have $500 million.
Oh, jeez.
So where's this other 150-ish million, chump change, really, gonna come from?
My first thought was when you said 667, I was like,
I know, right?
is that really just like them rounding up so that we don't say 666.66 billion or whatever?
I don't know where U.S. News got the number, but yeah, that's kind of suspicious there. But yeah, so the fund that they've put into the insurance, because that's what this all comes down to, is different kinds of insurance that they've had to do, doesn't have enough to cover just this one, let alone the ones that are coming. So it's down $167 million, and there's more coming.
It's interesting that the opening sentence of this article of the same thing out of CNN says, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, they're a corporation?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought they were like Center or something like FDIC.
Nope.
Anyway. On Friday, said that Republic First Bank has been closed by Pennsylvania state regulators in what the FDIC said was the first U.S. bank failure this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's interesting wording because if it was just sort of an anomalous thing, right, with no expectation behind it, it would just say in what the FDIC said was a bank failure, right? Or the bank failure. But no, they went ahead and said the FDIC said was the first U.S. bank failure this year, implying that they expect more.
It sure sounds like it.
It does sound very much like that, and that's accurate.
My question is, has this sort of thing happened before? And of course, I think it has. I remember my parents talking about their bank accounts and their mortgages being bought up by other banks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this happened in 2008. It happened in the 70s. Like, okay, we are headed for another very tumultuous time in the financial world. And honestly, it looks like this is the big one, because everything that I'm seeing is this is a combination between the Great Depression, the 1970s crisis, and the 2008 global financial crisis, all rolled up into one big package.
Well, it's like a turkey melt.
Yeah. Now, it's taken a little bit longer than I expected it to.
Sorry, turkey club, not turkey melt.
Oh, you mean turducken?
No, turkey club.
Oh.
Right, that's a sandwich. It's got like turkey and bacon and lettuce and tomato, and it's just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. Right, it's all the things thrown together with 3 levels of bread.
Ah.
Right, yeah. Sort of like the Big Mac of, like, cold cut sandwiches. So, like, but I'm just referencing the layers.
Well, this will be a little less tasty.
A lot less.
Yeah, I
for
thought
a lot of people.
Frankly, this is taking longer than I thought it was, because there's this thing called the reverse repo facility, which, long story short, it just means a bunch of money that's not out here running around driving prices up. And I thought it would be drained completely by now, and it's still not quite empty. So we're still not seeing the full inflation effect of all the money they printed during COVID.
As a guy who likes to mess around with language and words and stuff, I find it really weird that reverse repo isn't just oper. Because that's repo backwards, right? Or opier, but just like spell it O-P-E-R, right? And that would be reverse repo.
It would be,
it?
Yeah.
Save them a whole word. Reverse is a lot of letters for a word. It's not a lot,
sure
but
is.
There's a little town in New Hampshire called Walpole, or Walpole if you're not from around here. Otherwise, it's Wapple.
Wobble.
Kind of like Worcester.
I've mentioned this to some people. Every time I see a cop car go by, I'm like, I could, on the next time they need to paint their cop cars, I can save them some money, because they currently say Walpole Police, 2 words.
So Wapolice.
Yeah, like it would just save everybody a couple of dollars and like make it one word. Wapolice. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to see the what the market really thinks of this going on, though, just look at the price of Bitcoin, look at the price of gold, compare them to how they've been, because very simply, those are hedges against the financial system. So however that price is doing is how much the financial world wants to hedge against their current system.
Yeah, this is not financial advice, but if you are earning more than you're spending, if you're not in debt, or even if you're able to take some portion of money out of every check, $10, $20, whatever it is, put it into something other than dollars, something other than your bank. Put it into gold, put it into silver, put it into crypto, put it into, I don't know, buy, valuable comics or something, right? Buy collectibles. I don't care, but put it into something else, because the U.S. dollar is getting worth less and less. The longer you're alive.
Yeah, and there's a couple of good months left of buying time for Bitcoin. Get on it.
We are out of time. Thank you, Riley, for sitting in for Mark Edge today. Thank you, Peakless Mountaineer, as usual. Thank you to all of our listeners and our callers. We appreciate you. If you missed any part of tonight's program, find the archives over at freetalklive.com under the Resources tab. Thanks and peace.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money